I, 33M, rejected my husband, 33M, offer for a threesome divorce. Background, I, 33M, and husband, 33M, let's call him E, have been married for over a year and have been together for over 3 years. He was previously married for 8 years. During that time, he and his ex-husband had an open marriage but eventually divorced amicably. While they were finalizing their divorce, E and I matched on Tinder. We spent almost 3 months just talking online every day through text and FaceTime before we finally met in person. When we did meet, it was while E was searching for an apartment so he could move out of the house he and his ex owned together. From that day on, we became inseparable and eventually made our relationship official. I must say, this is the best relationship I've ever had. We do everything together. We're both physically active but also enjoy being couch potatoes, whether it's playing video games all night or watching TV. Last year, he got me into RuPaul's Drag Race, and now we spend our Friday nights waiting for the latest episode. Go Jewel Sparkles, laughing face. In the early stages of our relationship, we discussed what kind of relationship we wanted. I made it clear that I didn't want to be in an open relationship because it's just not for me. He agreed and said he wanted a monogamous relationship, as that was one of the factors that led to the failure of his previous marriage. We also discussed his preferences regarding his fantasy, which I believe is called a stag or cuckold kink, not sure which term applies. He shared that he fantasizes about me being intimate with another man, may it be me using or being used by someone else. I admitted that it would be difficult for me to fulfill that fantasy, but I was willing to find a compromise. So, we introduced toys into our sexy time and began incorporating talk about scenarios involving other people during our sexy time. This approach seems to work, as he appears to be satisfied. Over a year later we got married. It was a mid-size wedding, around 80 guests at a nice venue. Around 45 guests on his side and 35 with mine, mostly family and a few friends. We went on a nice honeymoon to Hawaii, staying an entire week there. Earlier today, E and I made plans for some sexy time. While we were in bed and I was scrolling through TikTok, kind of our thing before sexy time, he asked me a question. You probably already know what it is from the title of the post. He asked if I'd be willing to open up the marriage for a threesome. He then went on a whole speech, encouraging me to keep an open mind and think about it. Once he was done, I immediately said no and asked him what his reasons were for wanting it. He gave me 2 reasons: fun, excitement, IDK. It seems like the same reason, but whatever. I asked him if our sex life was boring and if that's why he wanted to do that. He said no, and that he just wants to spice things up a little. He also mentioned that he had been meaning to ask me this for a while but got too scared to do so. He has been wanting a threesome for a while. I argued, saying, it's boring for you. You wouldn't want to spice things up if it weren't. I told him that we were becoming sexually incompatible and suggested that we might need to consider being legally separated. Even though I love you and this is going to suck, it's better to end this now because it's something I cannot fulfill. It's against my morals, and even if I did it once, it would kill my mental health to go against my principles just to please you. He got quiet and eventually said that we should go to couples counseling. I told him that there's nothing wrong with him. A lot of gay and straight couples have open relationships, even polyamorous ones, but that's not for me or something I want to be a part of. I said it's better to end it now before it reaches a point where you might resent me for not fulfilling your fantasy. After that, we just lay there in bed, deep in our thoughts, and then he went to the store to grab something or cool off. What do you think we should do? Comments. Commenter 1. Honestly, it's up to you. I mean, if my wife suggested opening the marriage, we would be done and that's it. You handled it well. You still showed him love and support and you drew your boundary. You sound well adjusted. He knows the consequences now. The ball is in his court. Commenter 2. I was really learning from reading Op's responses how to have boundaries while being supportive. Op is deaf, well adjusted. Did all the right things. Also, I am now seeing from this post how if two people's prefs, sexual or otherwise, are diff, finding the middle ground might only help for so long. I'm curious to hear if there are couples who do make the compromise work and how. With sexual, there's always the worry the person will either resent the person with the boundary or cheat to get what they want. Commenter 3. Pretty sure his first marriage ended because he wanted to open it up and his ex didn't want to, and now he's trying his luck with you, hoping you'd be more easy to be manipulated into it than his ex was. If I were you and if I knew the ex was not a crazy person, I'd try reaching out to ask exactly what happened to cause it to fail. His side of the story might help you make more sense of the story instead of only one side. Commenter 4. And it's extra fucked up because it's very common for gay guys to be into non-monogamy. So he could easily choose to date other men who share this preference, but he chooses to pretend to share the values of monogamous men, only to spring the threesome request on them after they're fully committed, so it's harder for them to just walk away. Manipulative. Update. Hello everyone, I'm here to update you all on the recent happenings since my last post. First, I want to thank everyone who offered advice, both the good and the bad. I took bits and pieces from the comments and used them to guide the questions I asked him. Since my last post, I've been sleeping on the couch for the past 2 nights because I didn't want to be around him. Last night, when I got home from work, my husband and I spent nearly 3 hours discussing our relationship and the threesome he wanted us to engage in. I was very emotional throughout the conversation, and while I may have forgotten some details, I remember the important points clearly. He was very apologetic after seeing how his request offer upset me, and he assured me that he didn't mean to make a big issue of it. I started asking him questions. I asked if there was a specific person he had in mind for us to engage with in the activity, and he said, no. I also asked if he had slept with anyone else since we've been together, and he said, no. I asked him if something had happened or changed that made him want to have a threesome. He said, no, but he did mention that he wanted to ask just in case my stance on threesomes or non-monogamy had changed. I asked him again to clarify what he meant by spicing things up, and he explained that we've been having vanilla sex, which is why he made the suggestion. I told him that there's nothing wrong with vanilla sex, but there are other ways to spice things up without involving non-monogamy, like the adult toys we use from time to time. I then reiterated that I'm seriously considering separation because of his requests. I also reminded him of our plan to buy a house later this year or early next year, and eventually adopt a child to raise as our own. I explained that open marriages have a high failure rate, and I don't want to adopt a child only for them to experience us separating because our marriage failed. While this isn't the case for all open marriages, I'm not willing to take that risk, and I don't want that dynamic in our relationship. He then apologized again and said that his stag cuckold fantasies were just that, fantasies, and that he could live without them being fulfilled and he can just get off and be back to normal. He also told me that he still loves me so much and wants to spend the rest of our lives together. I expressed to him that my trust is shaken, and it's going to take a lot of work for us to get back to where we were. He then suggested couples counseling again, and I agreed. I also brought up the idea of seeing a sex therapist either for him individually or for both of us to help us better understand each other and possibly explore new fantasies that we can enjoy together without involving non-monogamy. He then promised not to bring up anything about non-monogamy. I want to thank everyone who responded to my post. I understand that some of you hoped for a different outcome, but I didn't want to end the relationship solely because of sexual fantasies. I truly hope I made the right choice and won't end up with a broken heart down the line. Hopefully, this will be the last update on this topic, but if there's more, I'll be sure to reach out again. I'd also love to hear everyone's take on this. Did I make the right choice by not ending the relationship outright? *Edit. To clarify, when I said, my trust is shaken, I was referring to our relationship. I'm questioning everything we've planned together, including whether we should move forward with the house and having children. I don't want to deepen our commitments if this is something he strongly feels about and cannot compromise on or live without. In that case, those plans would definitely need to be reconsidered. Comments. Commenter 1. It should be okay to open up to a partner as a fantasy, as long as they get to say no and have you respect that and not pressure them. People have fantasies, both mundane and wild, and not being able to fulfill them isn't a death knell for your marriage. I think you'll get through this. Commenter 2. Saying, I want us to have sex with other people, is a boundary some people aren't comfortable crossing. If I knew my partner wanted to have sex with another person while married to me, even if they expressed it as something they'd only do with my go-ahead, that would change how I look at them forever. Commenter 3. As another married gay man, 32yo, together 9 years, married 2, I'm going to offer a distinctly unreddit perspective that will probably go against the grain of most of what you're reading here. You may not like it, but when you post online soliciting advice from strangers, sometimes that happens. Truthfully, I don't understand why you're saying things like, my trust is shaken. Unless I'm missing something, your husband never cheated on you or even came close. All he did was open up to you about a sexual fantasy, which is something you should be able to do with your spouse without feeling judged or shamed. Yes, you had previously agreed upon monogamy, and it sounds like you both have honored that agreement. But people change over time, and it's natural to want to talk about your evolving sexual fantasies with your partner. He asked, you declined, he respected your decision. I fail to see what he did here that would have you considering separation. To be quite frank, your post sounds like you are behaving in a manipulative way. Holding the threat of separation above his head and saying things like, it's going to take a lot of work for us to get back to where we were, implying that by sharing a sexual fantasy with you he somehow committed a heinous crime and now must grovel and beg for your forgiveness. It's not a good look in my opinion. I definitely agree with the suggestion for couples counseling, but I would encourage you not to approach it from the angle of, my husband has wronged me and we're here so he can repent. Perhaps reflect on the way you are reacting to the situation as well. Commenter 4. Trust is a bad word for it, more like security. OP isn't feeling as secure in the relationship as before because they are no longer as confident as they once were about their ability to satisfy their partner, or that their partner can ever truly be satisfied in a monogamous relationship. With their previous marriage being open, it was already in the back of their mind. With it being brought up again, the insecurity is back at the forefront. Stories number 2. My 33F boyfriend 30M wants to break up with me because my 13-year-old daughter has decided she doesn't want to move in anymore. How do I accept this? My 33F boyfriend 30M of about 2 years just decided last night that we need to break up. For context, he owns his own house, a fixer-upper, that we both have been putting money into to get ready for me to move in by July this year. My 13-year-old daughter that has always lived with me was supposed to be moving with me. Last night we sat down and had a talk and she told me she really didn't want to change schools. Her dad lives in the same district she's currently in, and while I have always had primary custody, he has been a part of her life. So I told her if she really didn't want to move then I wasn't going to force her. We cried and hugged and I told her I would talk with her dad about how we will move forward with her transitioning into living with him. I then called my boyfriend to tell him that she will not be moving with me anymore, and that's when all hell broke loose. He says that he will not allow me to lose my daughter just to move in with him. He is pissed because she has up until last night been telling both of us that she would move and try the new school for at least a year. I told him that it's not his choice and that I won't force her to move if she truly doesn't want to. More context, I am also divorced and have 2 other daughters with my ex-husband and we share 50-50 custody. We have a great co-parent relationship and have talked and worked out a plan on how the move will affect time schedule with our 2 girls. He is not my 13-year-old's father. My boyfriend, we will call him Don for this post, also has a son from a previous relationship. He and his ex are still working on getting a better custody plan for their son. Basically though in July I and my daughter were supposed to fully move in. We have spent the last couple months really hammering down and getting what was supposed to be her room ready. She even picked out the wall colors. Don now says that it was just all for nothing, claiming that I am letting her walk all over me and quote, she shouldn't get to make any life-altering decisions, moving would do that in my opinion. Staying in this town with her dad in the same school wouldn't alter her life as much as moving her to a whole new town with new friends and a new school. Don was someone who switched schools when he was younger, so he thinks she will be just fine. I however was always in the same school my daughter is in right now. The new town compared to our current one is only about a 30-minute drive. Nothing that would stop me from seeing any of my kids on a damn near regular basis. Don refuses to even talk or try and figure out some kind of solution. He is only saying that he wants to break up so I don't lose my daughter. The other reason we are rushing to build the house and move is money. The apartment I have right now is way too expensive, and the only reason I have been able to live here on my own since my ex-husband moved out is because I have some money still left from my mom passing away. That money is going to run out by the end of summer if I don't either move in with Dawn like the plan was or find a cheaper place. I already only live in a 2-bedroom apartment and can't afford it. Moving in with Dawn would save me $1,000 alone in just rent. I told him if he's refusing me to still move in now that me and my daughter will end up separating anyways. I won't be able to afford this place and will need to downsize even more, and she would end up with her dad anyways. I have no other relatives in this state. Nowhere else I could go if I lost this apartment. I know my kids will be fine, they have good dads. What can I do to make Don realize that he's throwing away our relationship and overreacting to my daughter not coming to live with us? Stories number 3. Aita for exposing my wife's affair at our anniversary dinner. My 35M wife, 34F, and I just had our 10-year anniversary. I planned a fancy dinner with our close friends and family. Everything was great, until I noticed my wife acting weird with her phone. I glanced over and saw, "Good night, babe," from a name I didn't recognize. I excused myself, went to the restroom, and did something I probably shouldn't have. I checked her phone. She placed it on her coat hanging from the chair. Turns out she's been having an affair with Mark, a coworker. Explicit texts, plans to meet up, even complaints about me. I was furious. Instead of confronting her privately, I stood up, tapped my glass, and said, "I just want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate our love. And a special thanks to Mark for keeping my wife entertained when I'm not around." Then I walked out. She's been crying and saying I humiliated her. Our friends are split, some say she deserved it, others think I went too far. So, Aita. Stories number 4. Aita for telling my husband, "This has nothing to do with you." I, 27F, and my husband, 27M, just had an argument. If you could call it that. So my brother just got a job and it's great, except he just got thrown into single fatherhood immediately after. He has a daughter, my niece, who is about 6 months old, and has no one to babysit her while he works as the mother suddenly isn't in the picture. He called me, asking if I could watch the baby during the week while he works, only for a few weeks, since he knows I am a stay-at-home mom myself. I would have said yes, but I can't. I am pregnant and have 2 young kids of my own, one of which does school from home and I have to do it with her, which we are still getting the hang of because we just moved. By the time I'd be prepared for that he wouldn't need the help anymore. He understood, and asked if I knew anyone personally who could help because he was out of people to ask and wanted to try and avoid daycares as he didn't trust it. He said he would pay and cover everything but he just urgently needed someone and I said I'd ask around. I don't really have friends and I don't know many people in general as I'm very introverted, but my sister-in-law, 25, lives with us, and was just telling me how she needed a job and needed money, so I proposed the idea to her. She immediately agreed, and so I put her and my brother in a group chat to talk, as well as brought my brother over to the house to have a face-to-face talk about it. Now they're not strangers, of course, they've met before and all, so it wasn't awkward. So they talked about the baby, what was needed, etc. My brother didn't have a long-term plan mapped out right then since everything was so abrupt, but my SIL was understanding and said she'd be okay with whatever, and that was that. I'm not sure of other details as they text on their own and it isn't really my deal, it was up to them, but ultimately it came down to my brother Ubering my SIL to his house early in the morning and then dropping her off at home, and seeing how things go, which she agreed to. Everything seemed fine until the day of, my husband came into our room and blindsided me with all these complaints on her behalf. He said my SIL had not eaten since the morning, that she wasn't comfortable and she was tired and that she didn't even need to be there because other people were home and could have watched the baby, and that they only gave her $100, etc. I was confused, because I spoke to my SIL while she was there to check on her and she said everything was fine. So I told him she didn't say any of those things to me, and I asked her and she said she wasn't complaining to him. I said to him bluntly, so she is not complaining, you are complaining for her, and he said, yes. I told him I was confused, because he was throwing it all at me as if it's my responsibility, and that SIL and my brother are 2 adults who made their own deal, that was up to her and she agreed to it, nobody was forcing her. If she was uncomfortable or anything all she had to do was say it. He continued to repeat the complaints and said, do I have to get involved? I told him the deal doesn't involve him, or me for that matter, and I don't understand why he's the only one upset here when it has nothing to do with him. They are adults. He told me he can't even have a conversation with me and left the room. I'm genuinely confused. Am I missing something here? My SIL is also confused as to why he even got worked up to begin with. Aita. Comments. Commenter 1. This is weird as fuck to me. Why is he so concerned about his sister? She needed a job, you got her one. If she worked for a regular employer, would he call her boss and complain for her? What's he expect his pregnant wife to do? Ick man, shit's weird to me. Do I need to get involved? No, you need to cut the cord, weirdo. Reply. Yeah, I mean, he threw it at me like trying to make it seem like I don't care about my SIL or like something was my fault that I needed to correct, but he was the only one upset. My SIL says she never complained, so I just don't get why I'm the bad guy in this argument. Commenter 2. I wish I could give you better advice besides telling him to mind his own beeswax. But that's all it is. If it's going to be an issue, the only people who are going to suffer is your brother who can't work and your sister who needs money. What he wants you to do, girl, besides having him pay her an exorbitant amount of money to watch a 6-month-old, or should he also pay for her to eat while he pays for her rides to and from, which again a normal employer would not? They're family but not family at the same time, so if he wants her to get paid more, then maybe he should find her a ride, and whatever your brother spends weekly on Uber he can instead give to her. But it seems like your husband will be unhappy either way unless your SIL just quits, which seems like that's what he wants. Unless the sister-in-law is lying and really complained. It's like, what the heck, dude? Reply. I flat out asked him, what is it that you want? What do you want to happen? And he said, it's not about what I want. I said, but you're the only one complaining, and he got mad, trying to make it seem like I'm being inconsiderate. I'm so confused. And I wasn't even rude about it. Commenter 3. Girl, take you and your babies and your sister-in-law and get y'all some ice cream and go see a movie. Don't invite him, sounds like he's just being difficult for the sake of being difficult. You don't need that stress, you just tried to help her, and if he can't see that, then that's on him. If he takes it up with your brother, then let him. Warn your brother that this may become an issue so he can start looking for other child care options. Your husband sounds like he just has some beef with your brother, maybe it's underlying. But he's pushing this for no reason, and that's super sketchy to me. Reply. And even then that would confuse me. We moved to our new house about a week ago, and my brother is the one who helped my husband and I move. They loaded and moved all the furniture and everything together, just the 2 of them, zero beef, he even gave my brother an extra few bucks to thank him for helping out. I just don't get it. Commenter 4. Tell him to prepare his sister meal to take to work if he is concerned for her. You two might be blowing up a misunderstanding BTW, she was simply venting after work, it's okay she's new to it, and he thinks he has to defend his sister. Try explaining to him $100 a day is a good deal and it will do her good, and should at least consider staying enough time to be able to list it on a CV. Also, just text her and ask her to call you if she's having problems. I know this isn't your concern but you provided the contact and this way you just remove any drama coming from your hubby. Edit. If she has concerns requests you can have an adult convo about it and you can parley for your brother and then pass it to him. If it doesn't work just move to helping bro finding another solution and move on. Better than two people not involved arguing about it. Reply, it would be easier to understand where this is stemming from, but she says that she didn't tell him anything and she was confused like I was. Update. So, since I spoke with Sael and husband separately and got nowhere, I finally got the chance to sit them down together. I was calm and respectful the entire time. I flat out said, okay, so in regards to the babysitting gig, what's going on? What issues are there and where are they coming from? Husband made a scoffing sound and looked annoyed but didn't speak up. So I turned to my Sael and asked her bluntly, do you have any complaints, concerns or problems with the arrangement you and my brother made for the babysitting? She said, absolutely not. I asked her, are you sure? Did you say anything to, husband, that says otherwise? It's completely fine if you did but you have to speak up for yourself and talk about it, even to me if not my brother. She said, I honestly have no issues and I didn't complain to anybody, I swear. Then we looked at husband. She told him that she was fine with the arrangements and had no complaints, then she asked him why he had made a scene for no reason. He got defensive and said, nobody said you were complaining, it just doesn't make sense to me, there's no point in you doing it and it's not convenient. Are you even getting paid well? I sat there trying to understand why he was getting so defensive and Asael shot back at him telling him it wasn't his business and it didn't have to make sense to him, echoing exactly WTF I'd said in the first place that it had nothing to do with him, and that she didn't appreciate him doing this without a good reason. He said he does have a reason, and when we asked what the reason was, he said, because it doesn't make sense to me. I calmly asked him which part didn't make sense to him, and why he was so bothered by it when it does not affect our daily life in any way, that it didn't have to make sense to him cause it isn't his arrangement, and he got angry. He stood up from his seat, rambling something about how we were ganging up on him, and that we weren't going to make him the bad guy, and that nobody listens. Me and Asael just looked at him while he rambled and she was just as lost as me. I, still very calm, asked him what he wanted out of this, and why he kept trying to involve himself, when Sael clearly said she is happy with the agreement. He said, nobody fucking uses their brain around here but me I guess, and walked out. I don't know about y'all, but I'm no ass kisser and I definitely wasn't about to chase after him or baby him, he was being completely ridiculous IMO. So we let him go and that was it. About an hour later, he came back, and started saying things under his breath, like, my own wife just let me walk out, and she doesn't even care about me, and it's just fuck me I guess I just don't matter, while sighing and dragging it out. I ignored all of it, because, grow up dude, and he came into the room and said, so you have nothing to say to me? And I was like, nope. We tried to address things and you decided to storm off, so that's that. I think you're being dramatic and that's a you problem. He then called me inconsiderate and selfish, and left. Welp. I don't know what I'm supposed to do there or what he's expecting but there's the update guys. Comments. Commenter 1. He thinks your brother is taking advantage of his sister's kindness. He may not trust or like your brother. He may worry they'll develop a romantic relationship. Either way he needs to grow the fuck up and use his grown-up words. I have zero tolerance for grown-ass men that throw temper tantrums. Reply, I can't gauge it at all, and at this point I don't even care to because it's just ridiculous. We are all adults. My brother pays Sael handsomely, even paying for her rides to from home. Aside from texting about the baby or the arrangement, they don't really talk. And Sael is an open lesbian. I tried to ask him nicely instead of being rude and invalidating whatever his problem was, but he couldn't even handle that. I'm so over it that I don't even care what his problem is anymore. I do. I'm nosy and wanna know exactly how ridiculous he's being LMAO. Reply, this made me cackle out loud. Update, hello once again. I know a lot of you were wanting to know what's happened. With all the support from you guys, I feel I do owe you that. Things have happened, and I needed time to be alone, gather myself and process. My husband kept on with the attitude, the side comments under his breath, and just being weird. I gave no reactions and ignored it cause I got better things to give my energy to, like my pregnancy and my 2 children. Anyway, I was cleaning, and my husband decided to confront me, and asked me why I'm acting this way. I asked him what he meant, and he said I'm being a way towards him, and I simply told him I abso-fucking-lutely will not coddle him for an attitude that doesn't make sense for him to have. He got upset, rambling something about how as his wife it should matter to me that he's upset, and I said I have done nothing to him and I gave him chances to explain what was wrong and he didn't, so it's not my responsibility to fix whatever it is. He said this was all my fault, and I asked him what is my fault. I've done nothing but take care of our kids and our home as well as him. I told him that he made no sense, that nobody did anything to him, not me, not my brother, not Asael, and no one, that I wasn't going to deal with his attitude at all, and that he could find somewhere else to stay if he wasn't gonna cut it out. He sat down and said, that's what I'm talking about, saying that my lack of giving a shit and my no-nonsense attitude is upsetting to him. I asked him why would I be wanting to put up with bullshit especially while pregnant, and why would that bother him? He started all this drama over something that had nothing to do with him, and then it came. He took a deep breath and broke down with confession after confession. He admitted he had an affair, he admitted that he had installed a camera in our home without telling me in hopes I'd do something stupid so he could use it as defense, and that he'd figured out the woman he cheated with knew my brother, which is why he freaked about Sil working for him. He admitted he started drama to create an argument on purpose to give him a reason to feel justified, and my calm reactions for everything made that impossible for him. It bothered him that I never did anything wrong, because he had done something wrong and couldn't shift blame. I could barely react, I kind of just looked at him, my stomach was hurting, I just couldn't wrap my brain around any of it. He told me he was sorry, that he's a piece of shit and he doesn't know why he did it, that he loves me, tearing himself down, and I just told him to stop talking. I calmly said to remove whatever camera he installed, and to find somewhere else to stay. He cried and begged and I shut it down. He asked if I was going to tell Sil. You're worried about me telling people or what other people are gonna think of you instead of worrying about the fucking damage you've just done to our family. He left, but wouldn't stop calling me, trying to talk. Suddenly he wants to have a conversation, how funny. I put my phone on silent and went to play with my kids, trying to be normal to shield them from it. I didn't want them to see me upset. I was broken up on the inside, had a scare, I kept having sharp pain in my stomach and then I started to bleed. I was fucking terrified, I thought I'd lost the baby. My family helped me out, I got to the hospital, baby is okay. I guess it was just the stress, being too much. After everything settled I got home, put my kids to bed and cried it out. We've been together since we were like 15, I've never cheated on him ever, we're approaching 30, like what type of shit is that? I've never had a trust issue with him before, I'm not a phone snooper, I just don't do things like that, and I didn't have a reason to. He's never behaved like this before. Maybe he has cheated before and I just don't know about it. I don't even care to know, one time is enough for me. I want a divorce. I will be fair about it, I will not turn our children against him, I won't drag it. But I am done. Thanks for listening guys. Comments. Commenter 1. Yeah, he wanted a reason to make you the villain, so he could say well she acted like this or spoke to me like this. That's why I cheated, etc. I'd tell everyone and tell your brother about the skank he knows who was banging your husband. I'd block his number and use Sil as a go-to when he can come and collect the kids for visitation. I know it's hard, but don't take him back. This man tried to manipulate you into being the villain so it would justify him fucking another woman. Commenter 2. You summed it up perfectly. He wanted to rewrite the story so he could be the victim, but the truth came out anyway. No excuses, no justifications, just pure betrayal. She deserves so much better than a man who tried to gaslight her into taking the blame for his choices. Commenter 3. Well, at least he finally gave you a reason for his weird behavior. Sorry you had to go through all that drama and stress, but at least now you can move on and find someone who won't install cameras in your house without your knowledge. Stories number 5. An elementary school teacher broke up my family with a single question. This happened a couple of decades ago, when my oldest son was in kindergarten. A little backstory, my first wife and I got married young. We had 2 children, both boys, and after only a handful of years divorced amicably, with me having full custody. Our youngest looked very much like me, brown hair, brown eyes, stocky and broad-shouldered. You could tell by the time he was 2 that he'd be a great football player, if he decided to go down that path. Our oldest son, while sharing some obvious traits with me, looked more like his mother. Blonde hair, blue eyes, with very pale, thin skin. This will be important later. After the divorce, life moved on. My best friend and roommate helped me raise the boys, and eventually I met another woman. After dating for some time, we eventually got married. As far as I knew, she loved the boys just as much as I, and we both agreed on discipline, which consisted mostly of appropriate timeouts and talking to the boys to explain why they had gotten in trouble. Corporal punishment was never a thing in our house. One day, the two of them got into an argument over a toy. The argument ended when the elder son tried to grab the toy out of his brother's hands, and in an effort to keep the toy to himself, the younger child accidentally elbowed his brother in the face. Suddenly they were both screaming and crying, so I stepped in and sent them both to different rooms to cool off. We had a discussion about sharing, and in the end they went back to happily playing with each other. At dinner, I noticed that the eldest was developing a black eye. Because he was so fair and thin-skinned, he bruised easily, so I sat him down with an ice pack and gave him some children's Tylenol. He didn't seem too bothered by it, and the evening continued as normal. The next day, I sent him off to school. About 3 hours later, 2 county sheriffs and a social worker from CPS knocked on my door. They arrested my wife, and the social worker took my youngest, and after a fairly rude lecture, decided I must be a reasonably okay enough dad to come to her office and wait while she questioned my son. It took me some time to find out the truth. Most normal people who see a 5-year-old with a black eye would say, "What happened?" Or, "How did you get that black eye?" Not this teacher. Without any evidence or inclination of anything other than a loving, caring home life, this teacher asked my son, verbatim, "Did your mommy hit you?" Thinking he was going to get into trouble again for fighting with his brother, he said yes. The teacher then reported it to CPS, as was her obligation. I explained the situation to the social worker, who replied with, "Kids don't lie about these things." I insisted, and some time later my son recanted his story and told the truth, but the CPS worker held fast to the idea that, "Kids don't lie about these things," and insinuated that him eventually telling the truth was actually a lie I had pressured him into. My wife spent the night in jail, and was released under the stipulation that she have no contact with either child. She stayed in a hotel room for a couple of weeks, but we couldn't afford to co-tinge doing that. Her parents offered her a plane ticket to come stay with them on the other side of the country, so with the judge's permission, she quit her job and moved. My friend had moved out on his own, so with only one income and no affordable daycare, I had to make a choice. I contacted my first wife's parents, who I had kept in touch with for the boys, and asked them to take the boys for a while. Then I sold off most of what I owned, packed the rest into my truck, and drove across the country to live with her and her parents. My wife eventually took the case to trial and was found not guilty. The stress of everything put a serious strain on our relationship that never recovered, and we ended up divorced a few years later. Stories number 6. Aita for leaving my wife at a restaurant after she insulted me. My wife, 31F, and I, 30F, were at a restaurant to celebrate a big milestone in my career. I was talking about my career in voice acting, which I absolutely love, before she decided to insult me by saying, "You should be a mime instead so no one has to hear you talking anymore." My wife always makes a lot of jokes like these, basically insulting me, which I usually don't pay too much attention to. This joke in particular really hurt me because I used to be very self-conscious about my voice due to being bullied for years about the way I used to speak, so this hit me really hard. She also knows this was a hard point in my life and it was very hard to get past it. After she said this, I just said, "Are you serious?" before standing up abruptly and walking away. I didn't tell her where I was going, but I drove to my studio and have been here for the past few hours. She has been blowing up my phone with calls and messages about leaving her at the restaurant to pay the bill. It was an expensive restaurant and I usually pay for our outings as I make more money, and for leaving her stranded as I took the car when I left. I'm not sure if I'm overreacting, as my wife always says this is just her sense of humor and I need to stop being a snowflake, but she is blowing up my phone calling me immature for leaving over a joke. Am I the asshole for leaving her at the restaurant? Edit. Since a lot of people are referring to me as a man, husband, he, him. I am a woman. Me and my wife are lesbians. Thank you. Update. I wanted to post an update but I wasn't sure how or where, so I hope that it's okay to post it here. Smiley face. Anyway, to answer a few comments I got, my wife is unemployed and has been for the past few years. She was working in a very toxic company and ended up leaving due to it taking a toll on her mental health. I don't care that she is unemployed as my salary is enough to support both of us comfortably. The restaurant was only a 10-minute drive away from our home and she had the house keys, so she was not locked outside. Me and my wife have known each other since we were teenagers and have been married for 5 years. We have always got along well, but things have steadily been going downhill since she has been unemployed. I introduced my wife to playing games online after she was unemployed, since she had a lot of free time and didn't know what to do. I thought we could bond over this and I even ended up buying her a complete setup. As time has moved forward, my schedule has gotten a lot busier and she has been spending most of her time online and honestly has seemed quite disconnected from reality. We have had many arguments about her change in attitude and lack of interest towards me in our relationship. Most of the when we talk of if I tell her about something good that has happened to me, she says something out of pocket but always ends up playing it off as a joke if I press on it. Despite this, she is also very lovely and sweet sometimes, so don't think of her a bad person. Anyway, for the update. I ended up messaging my wife while I was at my studio that I wanted to take some time to think first and that I would be coming back home in the morning to talk with her about what happened. I also apologized for leaving her and not telling her where I was going, but she didn't reply, which is a little unusual considering she was blowing up my phone. I got pretty worried that something had happened to her, so I ended up driving back home at 2 to 3 a.m. in the morning. I found her drinking alcohol at home. I've had a suspicion for a while that my wife has been drinking secretly, but every time I try to ask her about it, she changes the topic or avoids me. When she saw me, she asked why did I come back home and that she didn't want to see me. She seemed pretty drunk, so I tried to give her some water and sober her up a little, but she just knocked it out of my hands and started yelling at me about how I embarrassed her, that I'm ruining everything for her, and a lot of insults. After her outburst, she locked herself away in her bedroom. I ended up looking through her PC. I'm not proud of that, as I saw a few comments that she could be cheating on me or that she resents me, and she has been sending nudes to multiple different people online. I haven't really spoke to her since that happened or brought up what I have found. This happened a few days ago. We have only said a few words here and then since that night. I have been staying for as long as I can at my studio every day since this happened. I don't know how to face my wife or even look at her anymore. It's gotten to the point that I can't even focus on my work properly anymore. A lot of comments pointed at abuse, and after really evaluating the relationship and how I've been treated these last few years, I can really see it. I was so blinded and kept thinking to myself that things would somehow get better, but I think it's best to take some time to myself now. I've spoken to a few lawyers about divorce, but I'm still waiting. I'm not sure where my wife will live or how she will support herself since I have been supporting her financially, so I'm still trying to work things out. This probably be the only update I will make regarding this situation, so thank you again to everyone who commented and supported me. Stories number 7. My 29F, fiancé, 29M, Irish goodbye, me at a bar and is now acting strange. Advice? Sorry for the long post, as I'm trying to include all the details here. My 29F, fiancé, 29M, has been acting strange lately and I'm not sure what to do. This all started last weekend when we went to a very busy bar downtown. I was uncomfortable, as I typically don't love packed bars such as this one. Social anxiety, I expressed this to my fiancé, and we ended up having some of his friends meet up with us. Things got a little better for me, as I consider them friends as well. After a while, I noticed my fiancé wasn't around us anymore, and so I checked my phone. He had texted me 20 minutes prior and said, "Let's leave and get dinner." I texted him to ask him where he was and there was no reply. After calling him a few times, he finally answered and said he was outside the bar and then hung up. He wouldn't answer any of my other calls. I went outside and after looking for him in crowds of people, I finally found him across the street and down the street about a block. He was standing by himself on his phone. I was furious, and asked him why he left me didn't answer his phone, to which he said, "I didn't leave you." I continued to ask questions until he just stopped talking. We didn't talk for the rest of the day. While I recognize he didn't completely leave me downtown, I was still shocked he even left the bar without having a conversation. It was really hard to find him, and while I searched for him, I was alone and drunk in a sea of strangers. Also, I was getting another drink when he left the bar and I had asked if he needed one. He said no, but never said anything about leaving. Through the week, things kind of went back to normal, although I did text him once about it more calmly trying to get clarity, and he never replied to my text. Fast forward to this weekend, he woke up and went to the gym while I slept in. He came back from the gym and found me awake but still in bed, and he brought me a coffee, as he often does. I took my time to get up, and once I did, I realized he wasn't at our house anymore. I checked his location and found that he was driving around in our area. I watched as he went in circles until he parked about a mile from our house at a park. We don't frequent this park. He stayed there for about 30 minutes. I texted him and asked where he went. He never replied to my text. When he finally got home, I asked him where he went in a joking, chipper tone. I tried to keep things light so I wouldn't sound accusatory, and he mumbled that he was at the gym. And I said, "No, I mean after the gym, you came home from the gym and then left, right?" And he wouldn't give me an answer. I got angry, and when I continued to press he angrily said, "I don't know, I was just driving around. I'm not sure how to feel right now." It's very odd behavior for him, and we don't typically keep anything like this from each other. It hurts to think that he might have wanted to get away from me, enough to drive around aimlessly for an hour. I'm totally okay with him having private time. A lot of time he goes into our guest room and shuts the door and I don't bother him. It feels like something more is happening, but I just don't understand what. I'm not the best communicator, but it's something I'm working on. But it's really hard to communicate with a partner that completely shuts down. I broke down crying yesterday about all of it. I explained to him that it makes me feel like I'm an inconvenience when he doesn't respond to me and that he's not acting like a partner. After a while, he did apologize for making me feel like he doesn't care about me. He said he does care about me and loves me, but he still never gave me more context into why he left the bar or why he was driving around. When I asked about it again, he still said he doesn't want to talk about it. I feel crazy. He wants to go back to acting normal, but I just can't shake that something is off. Any advice on how you would approach the situation would be greatly appreciated. Stories number 8. My friend invited my ex-husband to her wedding, so I had to leave. I, 37F, left my husband, Darren, 37M, 2 years ago, when our eldest daughter, now 19, came out and he physically attacked her for it. We have 4 children and I have sole custody over the 3 who young enough to be covered by custody agreements, which Darren has tried to fight me over for the past 2 years, but when you have a criminal record for beating up one child, the courts are unlikely to give you custody of the others. Darren and I were in the same friendship group since primary school, but my friends told me they had all cut contact with him. I went to my friend, Rachel's, 37F, wedding, this weekend when I spotted him at the ceremony. Because it's a wedding and an important day for my friend, I chose not to acknowledge his existence. It was a big wedding anyway, so I thought I could just avoid him and have a conversation with Rachel about his presence at a later date because she deserved to enjoy her day. However, when I was looking at the seating plan for the reception, I saw both of our names, one after the other. Rachel had put our group, including Darren, on the same table. My 2 other friends from this group convinced me to take my seat because we hardly get to see each other anymore, promising that they had no idea why Darren was invited and vowing to make him regret being born if any drama started. Darren sat next to me, greeted me with a "Hey, babe," as if we were still together, and I could not cope with being in his presence. All I could think about was desperately trying to restrain him while my second eldest called the police. I downed my glass of Prosecco and walked to my hotel. Yesterday, I got a message from Rachel saying that her mom asked her to invite Darren and Rachel said yes because her parents were paying for most of the wedding. Rachel's mom is Darren's godmother. I asked her about the seating plan and, again, she said that was her mom's doing because she was adamant that there was a potential for us to get back together. She apologized for not telling me, saying that she thought I wouldn't go if I knew, which is true, I wouldn't have come. I have not replied to that message and I don't plan to. As much as I don't want to give up on an over 3-decade-long friendship, I can't get past this. Stories number 9. Aita for embarrassing my husband's coworker for embarrassing me and my husband. A few months ago, after many years of trying to conceive, my husband, 32M, and I, 33F, had a gorgeous, healthy baby boy. My husband and I are black, which is pertinent to this story. We were over the moon, and family, friends, and co-workers had also been excited for us. Right after I delivered, my husband emailed a birth announcement with a photo of our son to everyone in his office. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and my husband came home fuming after his first day back at work. One of his co-workers informed him that another guy in the office, a new young employee my husband barely knew, had been telling everyone willing to listen that my husband couldn't be our son's father because that baby is too light to be his and its hair is too long and straight. That's a white man's baby, or an Asian's. This guy proceeded to tell everyone what a sucker my husband was and that his excitement over finally becoming a dad was blinding him to the reality that he had been cheated on and his wife impregnated by another man. Side note for anyone who's still unaware, in 2025, black babies in general are fairly pale as newborns, and their skin will darken over the first few weeks. Hair changes to a clear pattern are usually gradual as well. Our son was no exception, and is now my hub's mini-me. My husband said he had immediately confronted and questioned the guy, who completely denied saying anything inappropriate and claimed he only said, as a joke, the baby was too cute to be my husband's. But others in the office confirmed the first co-worker's account. Not only that, the guy had tried to parlay his superior perception skills into some weird form of workplace clout. Fortunately, the guy got moved to a different shift that same week, so my husband didn't have to see him again. That is, until a company event this past weekend. Families were invited, and we took our son. And who should come and insert himself into our group as we were chatting with the boss but Brown-Noser McMouth. He interrupted our conversation and introduced himself to the boss, shaking his hand. When I realized who he was, my anger came flooding back, and I said, "I don't believe we've met, but aren't you the guy who went around telling everyone in the office I must have cheated on my husband with a white or Asian man and this couldn't be his son?" The guy went red and silent. Boss said to him, "See me in my office first thing Monday," and walked away. I think someone's fired. My husband said I went too far because it was already over and done with. I said it wasn't done for me until I'd had my say, and I was the one being defamed, not him. Aita. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, NTA, you're not an ah. But that doesn't mean this was the best thing to say at a work event. Reply, it wasn't the best time, you're right, but I had been feeling eyes on me up until that point and convinced myself I'd been unfairly gossiped and speculated about by everyone around me. Commenter 1, and I can't fault you at all, but I do think there is a slight risk of this negatively impacting your husband at his job. But he definitely got what he deserved. Reply, I doubt it. My husband was one of the first people hired when they opened this US facility, and he's consistently gotten recognition and raises for developing new processes. Commenter 2, NTA, you were slandered in a way that could have negatively impacted your marriage. And you had no real recourse, aside from a lawsuit, to publicly defend yourself against the accusation made against you. An opportunity presented itself in this man's continued pompousness. You took it. You made it clear, with your baby now looking just like your husband that one. He was obviously wrong, and 2. That you were hurt by the accusation. Behavior has consequences. Commenter 3, the racist part of his slander is also really offensive. The very kindest interpretation is that he's ignorant and happy to broadcast his ignorance to everyone around him, but I expect the kindest interpretation is being way too generous with this guy. I hope he gets his ass handed to him by the boss. Commenter 4, you prevented further harassment of other people at the office. Unlikely the dude only targeted you and your hubby. Well done. Update. The response to my post was overwhelming yesterday, and I was only able to read a few replies, enough to surmise that I was NTAH in the scenario. A big thanks to all who took the time to weigh in. As for the fallout, Brown Noser McMouth didn't get fired yesterday. They didn't have to fire him because he didn't show up for work. At some point between Saturday afternoon and Monday morning, he cleared out his cubicle and left his badge and company phone on the desk. I'm trying not to feel guilty by telling myself he learned a valuable life lesson and will probably be a new and improved version of himself wherever he lands. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, how old did the guy appear to be? Reply, 23 or 24, just out of college. Commenter 2, no need to feel guilty. This is all due to his piss poor behavior. I'm so happy your husband no longer has to have any type of interaction with this man. Commenter 3, it sounds like you didn't even have to do much for karma to catch up with him. His behavior was completely unprofessional, and it's his own fault for acting like that. Don't feel guilty, it sounds like he got exactly what he deserved. Hopefully, he will learn and grow from this, but that's on him now. Commenter 4, he learned that actions have consequences. Probably better he quit than get fired anyway. Regardless, you have nothing to feel guilty for. Hope you and Bubba are doing well. X. Stories number 10. My new boss doesn't like how much holiday I'm taking and has reported me to HR. I've taken 11 days of annual leave this year so far. Nothing unusual, did pretty much the same last year and my boss was fine with it. However, new year, new boss, and she seems to be offended that I've dared to take so much time off. I won't share screenshots of the emails for obvious reasons, but our conversation was as follows. My boss, hi SML, I notice you've taken a lot of PTO recently. I've approved this for now, but when you are back we need to discuss why you are taking so much time off. Thanks, boss. Me, hi boss, this is nothing new and I have done this every year. I tend to use up some annual leave in the first few months of the year, and then some more in the last few months of the year. Please let me know if you are unhappy with this. Kind regards, SML. Boss, how much PTO do you have? Me, I assume you mean annual leave. I have the company standard 31 days, plus an extra 3 days as negotiated in my contract. I also have 4 days carried over from last year. As of 31/03/25 I will have 27 days left for the year. I plan on taking 11 days in August, 8 days in December, and the remaining 8 days as and when needed. Boss, that seems excessive, we don't have that much PTO so I'm unsure where your numbers are coming from. I have referred this to HR because I think this isn't right. Me, okay, fine. I was due to come back on Wednesday, please put me on leave for the rest of this week. If HR agree my holiday terms are correct, I expect the extra 3 days to be gratis. Boss, I don't know what you mean but fine, I'll see you on Monday morning. I then spoke to HR, we had a polite conversation, as when I joined this company we negotiated a salary match but an extra 3 days of holiday. HR were pretty unimpressed that they were going to be getting a report, and told me, SML, enjoy the week off. Wish I had a boss who'd give me free holiday like that. The boss herself is located overseas and has absolutely no idea about employee rights. When I spoke to my colleagues, letting them know I'd be off for the rest of the week, one of them told me that the same boss also referred a friend of hers to HR because she wanted to take her full 52 weeks of maternity leave in one go. Again, apparently that wasn't acceptable, to which HR said nope, she's good to go, see you in a year. Bring baby photos. Stories number 11. Aita for refusing to take my ex back but accepting my fiancé's kids. My ex-husband, let's call him Frank, and I got married deeply in love. After a while, I found out I couldn't have children. Frank wanted kids, and he told me he didn't want to leave me but also wanted to have a child with someone else. I couldn't accept that. Later, I found out he had gotten a woman from his workplace pregnant. He told me he didn't want to divorce me and still wanted to be with me, but I couldn't stay. Despite his resistance, I divorced him, and he married the mother of his child. This was 2 years ago. Now, I'm with someone new, let's call him Mark. Mark is kind, understanding, and has been a great support system for me after everything with Frank. I love him deeply. He has 2 sons from his previous marriage, ages 3 and 5. They stay with him every other weekend and see him regularly during the week. He's a great dad, and I admire that about him. Mark and I recently decided to get married, and I'm really happy about it. But ever since Frank found out, he has been trying to contact me. Today, he showed up outside my work. He accused me of being a hypocrite, accepting Mark's kids but refusing to accept his. He said that all he ever wanted was to build a life with me and grow old together and that I was being unfair for not accepting him under the same circumstances. Logically, I see why he thinks it's the same situation, but it doesn't feel the same. The thought of Frank and his child still hurts me, yet I don't feel the same way about Mark and his kids. Frank insists it's the same, but is it? So Ada. Update. Wow, I didn't expect to receive this much support. Thank you all so much. I wanted to address a few things that came up in the comments. Surgery was not an option for me. We consulted multiple doctors, and in the end, we had to accept that I wouldn't be able to have children. That time was especially difficult for me, and Frank was my biggest source of support. Adoption was also off the table because Frank didn't want it, he wanted biological children. He told me, I don't want to raise someone else's child. I was the one who first suggested divorce back then, but he swore he would never leave me. He even said, it will always be just the 2 of us until the end. And I believed him. Frank and I met in high school and were together for 10 years. I think that's why he knows exactly how to get to me. After our conversation today, I started doubting myself. I even felt like I was the one at fault. Thank you all for helping me see things from my perspective again. I feel much more certain now. Update 2. I wanted to clarify a few things that kept coming up in the comments. When we divorced, I blocked Frank everywhere. However, he still hears about my life because my cousin is married to his best friend. I no longer speak to my cousin because, after the divorce, she defended Frank and insisted that he loved me. Unfortunately, some things just don't stay private within families. As for Frank's marriage, I know for a fact that he only got married due to pressure from his mother. She had already told him to divorce me and remarry as soon as she found out I couldn't have children. We never got along. She was one of those mothers who are possessive of their sons. Regarding surrogacy, that was never an option for us. The one thing Frank and I fully agreed on was that a child should have the right to know their biological parents. We both believed it would be unethical to take that away from them before they were even born. The irony of Frank suddenly caring about ethics when he cheated is not lost on me. Now, about how Frank managed to mess with my head, he told me that Mark never had to make the kind of choice he did. That Mark was never put in a position where he had to pick between being with me and having biological children. He claimed that if Mark had been in his place, he would have made the same decision he did. And honestly, for a moment, that made me stop and think. That's how the manipulation started. He made me question myself, and in the end, I felt guilty. I'm so glad I wrote all of this here because it's helped me see things clearly. Thank you all again for your support. Also, I talked to Mark about everything, and he got very angry. He's mad that I spoke to Frank, and I think he's right to be. I've decided to apply for a position at Mark's company. It just feels like a healthier option moving forward. Some people suggested I should tell Frank's wife about all this, but I have no interest in doing so. If they get divorced, he'll just become even more of a problem for me. It's better for everyone if he stays married. Update, Aita for refusing to take my ex back but accepting my fiancé's kids. Hello again. I wanted to give an update and also get your advice on another issue. As some of you predicted in my last post, Frank hasn't given up. Every day, he sends flowers. Every morning, I find a new bouquet on my desk at the office. The notes always say things like how he won't give up on us, how he loves me, and how I'm the love of his life. I've realized that these words don't mean anything to me anymore. I told Frank to stop, that I don't want to talk to him anymore, but the flowers keep coming. Since he has many connections in my company, including the owner, who is his friend, I can't even figure out exactly who is delivering them to my desk. Frank comes from a wealthy background, which gives him influence in places like my workplace, making it harder for me to shut this down. I haven't told Mark about this because he gets very tense whenever Frank comes up in conversation. The last time I talked to him about Frank, he was angry. But keeping this from him doesn't feel right either. What should I do? Another issue is causing tension between Mark and me. Mark doesn't want me to invite my aunt to our wedding. She is the mother of my cousin, who is married to Frank's best friend. However, my aunt has always been a very important person in my life. She's like a second mother to me. This has become a major point of conflict between Mark and me. I don't want to create distance between us, but I also don't want to lose my aunt. What should I do? I would really appreciate any advice. Final update, Aita for refusing to take my ex back but accepting my fiancé's kids. A lot happened last night. Right now, I'm sitting alone in my room, and I wanted to update you all. I talked to Mark and told him everything. He asked me why I hadn't told him sooner, and I explained my fears. First, he clarified that he wasn't angry at me for keeping it from him, he was angry at Frank. He apologized for being harsh with me before and admitted that a big part of his reaction was jealousy. However, he also said that, even though Frank's obsession isn't my fault, it could still cause serious problems in our lives. He doesn't know how far Frank is willing to take this, and while he loves me, he doesn't want to put his children in a situation like this. We decided to call off the wedding. I can't believe my relationship, which was going so well, has ended because of Frank. I feel so angry and heartbroken. In the heat of the moment, I messaged Frank's wife and told her everything. She saw the message but didn't reply. Then, Frank emailed me, saying he doesn't care whether his wife stays or leaves because if I take him back, he'll divorce her anyway. The email is still open in front of me, and I can't even process it. Why am I always the one who gets hurt? My whole life, I've tried to be kind, to see things from others' perspectives, to focus on the good in people. I don't believe I deserve this. More than anything, I'm furious that after everything Frank has put me through, he still gets to move on without a care in the world. Update. First of all, I want to thank everyone for their support. I received more kindness than I ever expected, and I'm truly grateful for it. The idea of moving feels like the right choice for me as well. I've already started looking into possible places to go. I just need to get away from everything for a while. I also want to clarify that Frank is not physically violent. He doesn't pose that kind of threat. My family is aware of everything that has happened, and while they are angry at Frank, none of us have ever doubted my safety. That being said, I've decided to involve the police, as many of you suggested. Not because I'm afraid, but because it might finally make him keep his distance. On a side note, Frank's mother actually called my mom and asked her to make sure I don't get back together with Frank. My mom's response: "You should focus on keeping your son in check." Thank you all again. Stories number 12. Aita for not letting my husband use airline credit for a coworker. Plus 2 years update. My husband and I got married 2 years ago during the middle of COVID lockdown. We were to go to France and Germany for our honeymoon. We saved for the tickets and to be honest I paid for most of them. This is both a second marriage, both 43, and our finances have stayed separate for the most part due to my insistence. We have tried to go 3 times to our honeymoon and lockdowns or illnesses have left us stateside. My husband is very well traveled and I haven't been to many places. I have tried to talk to him about using the credit to go somewhere in the States but he insists we wait. He is stingy on money and I have paid the majority of every travel we have done which is mostly with my children. He has made me feel really bad about wanting to change the plans because he says it's giving up on our honeymoon. I haven't been anywhere and even going to a coast would be amazing. Today when I got home from work he said he had a coworker, 25, who is stuck in Florida on vacation due to a flood that happened there recently. He says her car was totaled and has no way to get back to work her job. He offered to fly her back with our credit. I was dumbfounded. I asked if we will be paid back and he shrugged and said he doesn't feel like she needs to because she is going to RN school. I am an RN and I would hard for every dime I make working in ICU. He didn't ask me to use the credit, he assumed I would be fine with it. It only came up in conversation about how crazy his day was. Alta for saying no to use the credit on a coworker. Aita for feeling like he cared more for this woman than me. Top comments. Commenter 1, Ta. Your husband is though, that's airline credits for you and your family, not for some random person your husband happened to work with. Why is this coworker being stranded in Florida any of his business? If he's so worried about the coworker, he can pay for the flight with his money. Commenter 2, NTA, but I'd be leery about him not wanting to go anywhere with you and suddenly wanting to give some random 25-year-old chick your honeymoon credit. Commenter 3, wow. NTA, but this sounds sus as heck. He wants to use your credit, that you mostly paid for, to help a coworker. Look, I'm friends with a lot of my coworkers, and if they totaled their car in another state, I'd tell them to call their insurance, although they're adults and wouldn't need that advice. How did he find out about this? Were people at his work talking about it and he decided to swoop in as the hero, or did she call him? Either way, highly sus, OP, highly sus. Update. I just logged into an old computer and found this account that I no longer use. I had completely forgotten about it and honestly have only a vague recollection of posting it due to circumstances I will get into. The marriage ended right after this. It looks like this is almost 3 years old and I have been away from this man as of 3 years in July 2025. This was one of the last arguments we had. He told me I was very uncaring about the stranger in Florida and if I was a nice person money would be no object to get her. He then strangled me to the ground and I passed out. By this point in the marriage, I handed him my phone when I got home from work and he would give it to me when I left for work. I tried to leave several times each time I came back. When I wrote this post, I was downloading the audiobook Why Does He Do That by Bancroft and then deleting it each evening before I handed my phone to him. This book saved my life. It gave me the courage to try to get away and understand that he wasn't going to change. He had choked me several times, and he was physically abusive. By this point to your marriage, I had glass in my foot, and had half my hearing from a busted eardrum in my right ear. So about a week after this post, I went to get the mail, something I was not allowed to do but something told me I needed to. In the mailbox was a $35,000 check from my inheritance of my aunt. I stuffed it in my panties and it stayed there until the next day when I could leave with my purse and my dog. I called my daughter and she came to pick me up. I didn't even have shoes on. That was July 1st, 2022. I'll save you all the work it took to get to where I am today, but I will say that my life is good. My life is joyous. My life is safe and peaceful. I'm officially divorced and it took 2 years of him kicking and screaming to do that. He is yet to pay me a dime for the house that I bought and I don't expect to see it as he is in contempt. Thank you so much for the advice that you gave me that day. I am not sure if he was having an affair with that woman or not. Most likely he was getting to the point where he was, all evidence point to that. I don't care though, I was so far gone that I don't even remember the post. It was like complaining about the smell of smoke when your whole house is on fire. Thank you again for being so gentle with me. To the woman who told me to use the credit and go to the coast a year ago, I did. I took one of my daughters and we went to Oregon and Washington. We hiked, we sunbathed on the beach. We rock-hounded. We did all the things. I don't have any ambition to go to Paris or Germany. It was never my dream. Again, thank you so much for all the support you gave me 3 years ago. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, so glad to hear you escaped, that you enjoyed the trip with your daughter and your life is full of joy, safety, and peace. I'm sure your aunt would be thrilled and proud that the inheritance left to you literally saved your life and got you out of your abusive marriage. Reply, at the beach I etched her name in a pebble and threw it out to sea. She saved my life. Commenter 2, congratulations. I am glad you and your daughter are now safe. Reply, I had adult daughters that didn't live with me. Also had a teen daughter who was isolated from me. I am thankful that their dad and I always remained close. He is gay and so that is why the marriage ended, no hard feelings at all. So my teen didn't see much abuse, but me not being there is something we both work on repairing. I take full responsibility for that. Commenter 2, it's better that she didn't see the abuse. It's great you have reconnected. Is there victim services where you are? Can you get therapy? It can be useful in processing trauma and repairing relationships. Reply, I've been in therapy 2 years. It's the only reason I have peace. I had severe CPTSD when I left and was a shell of my former self. Commenter 3, OP, I'm so happy for you and proud that you had the strength and courage to leave. Once they start strangling their partner, the odds of them killing their partner is significantly higher. You've saved your own life. Reply, I was a nurse for 20 plus years, on disability now for different reasons than the abuse, and I remember the day in nursing school that once they start choking you they are all but guaranteed to kill you with a year. Stories number 13, Trip my girlfriend at the movie theater. Okay, enjoy the twist ending I'm about to spoil for you. Years ago, my girlfriend, now wife, and I went to see Mickey Blue Eyes in the theater. We were standing online, patiently awaiting our turn to buy tickets, when a guy pushed his way through, actually shoving people to get to the counter. Everyone started complaining, but instead of apologizing, he said, "Sixth Sense starts in 5 minutes. If you're seeing something else, you have time," as though that excused being physical or jumping the line. My girlfriend ended up falling to the ground and hit her head against a chair. She got up with a cut on her chin, but otherwise she was okay. A lot of people stepped forward to check on her, but not the asshole who pushed her. He got to the front, ordered his ticket for Sixth Sense, and walked toward the usher. I made sure my girlfriend was okay, sitting in a chair, and then I made a beeline for the guy. My girlfriend thought I was going to start a fight, which is weird, since she knows I've never hit anyone in my adult life, but I had a better plan in mind. See, she and I had seen Sixth Sense the weekend prior, and it had one of the best twist endings in movie history. Don't read any further if you haven't seen the movie but plan to. So I walked toward the guy and said, "Hey. You," in an angry voice. He stopped short and turned to face me, taken aback. "What?" he asked. So I clenched my fists, looked him in the eyes, and then relaxed and smiled. I said, in a soft voice so no one else would hear me, "Malcolm is dead the whole time. No one sees or hears him but the kid, but Malcolm doesn't realize it until the final scene. Enjoy the film." Then I smiled again and walked away, and I heard him say behind me, "Dude, what the fuck, man?" Thankfully, my girlfriend wasn't hurt. The cut wasn't even bleeding when I returned to her a minute later, and we enjoyed Mickey Blue Eyes. Not a great movie, no, but funny. The cast alone made the film worth watching, but we had a great time, even with the script problems, because my girlfriend kept looking at me while we were watching the film, and saying, "Malcolm is dead the whole time." Then we would giggle silently. Good times, responding to some recurring comments. This story is true. My wife and I chuckle about it from time to time, and we certainly were last night after I showed her my post. There are a few illiterate, impotent trolls here on Reddit who are calling it rage bait and obviously fake, and one troll inexplicably claimed AI wrote it. I hate AI and would never use it to write something. Those with writing skills, and I am one such person, do not need to cheat by having AI write their posts. Some people are saying I should have punched him. As my story noted, I've never hit anyone in my adult life. Violence is the refuge of those unable to use their brain, and I am not like the pretend alpha males here who idolize the chinless rapist Andrew Tate. Also, had I hit him, then I would have gotten kicked out of the theater instead of watching Mickey Blue Eyes while giggling with my girlfriend at the thought of the guy sulking 3 theaters over because he knew Malcolm is dead from the first scene, and I very likely would have been arrested for assault, so it would have been a really stupid move on my part. I think my solution was a lot better than violence. Plus, if I were in jail, any sex I might have had would have been far less preferable to the sex my girlfriend and I enjoyed that night. Normally, I'd never spoil movies for anyone. Hence the spoiler space in my post. But if you knock the woman I love to the floor and don't even ask if she's alright, I'm willing to spoil the endings to say 7N, Planet of the Apes, The Usual Suspects, Psycho, Citizen Kane, The Crying Game, Fight Club, Memento, The Others, Inception, Looper, The Prestige, Soylent Green, American Psycho, Saw, Scream, Night of the Living Dead, Primal Fear, Unbreakable, Donnie Darko, From Dusk Till Dawn, and even The Empire Strikes Back before I'm done. I'll leave no twist ending untwisted. I think a lot of people are focused a bit too much on the idea that he attacked her. That's not what happened, and it's not what my post above describes. He didn't punch her or physically attack her. What happened was that he shoved his way through the line, like a guy who didn't care that there were people in front of him. She fell due to the people being dislodged, not due to his having targeted her specifically, and she hit a chair that was thankfully cushioned. But she was fine, other than a tiny cut, and she didn't want me to do anything. It was her choice, not mine, to press charges. She wanted to go in and see the movie, not make a scene, so I decided to ruin his evening before she and I enjoyed ours. And from the look on his face, I know I succeeded, whereas I definitely enjoyed mine. More importantly, she was happy with my solution, and that's all that matters in the end because SHE is all that matters in the end. Stories number 14. Aita for not telling my ex that I adopted a child. I, 38F, have been single for 6 years. Though never married, my ex, Eric, 41M, and I share a 4-year-old son, Bryson. We broke up shortly after Bry's 3rd birthday but were hoping to get back together. I got pregnant thereafter but unfortunately miscarried. I wanted to salvage whatever I thought we had left but Eric decided to move on. He is now married and he and his wife have a daughter with another child on the way. Since our breakup, I haven't seriously dated but I've always wanted another child. With that, I secretly started the adoption process a year and a half ago, and now I'm the proud mother to a beautiful baby girl. I never told Eric about this because he once told me, in no uncertain terms, that our relationship only extended to our son. The adoption process was long but very personal for me. I only told my mom and best friend, who were largely supportive, though realistic about the challenges of being a single mom to 2 kids. However, when Eric found out about my daughter from our son, he was angry. He said that finding out that I adopted through Bri was childish and that he should have been the first person to know, since adding a baby to my household could affect our son. He said we owed it to Bri for the 2 of us to have a sit-down conversation with him about this. I informed Eric that I already had a conversation with Bri and that he was excited about his little sister. I also told him that what he was proposing would have been awkward, since he and I are no longer together and he's not my daughter's father. He then got angry and said that as a single mother, Bryson's lifestyle shouldn't change because of a new baby, even though he and his wife now have children of their own. For context, I make close to $80,000 before taxes, not including child support. I let Eric know that I am more than financially stable to care for 2 children and was honoring his wishes that we only focus on Bryson, but he still called me selfish and accused me of holding a grudge. ETA, I'm truly sorry for any confusion, but I wanted to update the post to provide clarity on the timelines. My ex and I broke up in 2019, right before the start of the pandemic. We were not together when we had our son but were still having sex. Bryson is 4. He was born in 2021. I miscarried in 2023 and by late summer early fall, Eric started seeing his now wife. They married just last year in 2024. Their daughter is 7 months and she's pregnant again. I don't know how far along she is. Again, I apologize for the confusion. I should have specified. Stories number 15. My boyfriend is furious that I'm breaking up after he insisted on opening our relationship. My boyfriend and I, both in early 30s, have been in a relationship for almost 4 months. From the beginning, the topic of an open relationship came up, and I was very clear that I wanted something exclusive. Eventually, we agreed that we could revisit the discussion after 1 year and see how I felt about it. At the time, I already suspected I wouldn't be okay with it, but I liked the idea of spending a year with him, so I thought I could cross that bridge when we got there, or we can break up with good memories. However, during a chill night together recently, he suddenly brought up the topic again and told me that he definitely wants an open relationship after 1 year. It was kind of out of nowhere because it was not even one of our topics recently. This instantly made me sad, not angry, because I was already struggling with the relationship in other ways. I had been trying to convince myself that I could deal with certain issues, such as his tendency to be selfish in many topics, ignoring my emotions if they are not matching with his, and a sex life that hasn't been as fulfilling as I'd hoped, even though I brought up the subject so many times. I told him that his timing really upset me because I wasn't prepared to have this conversation, especially when we were already dealing with other issues. He apologized for bringing it up after seeing how sad I was. But the next day, I realized I was done. When I told him, he got angry and upset, saying I hadn't even thought it through, that our sex life was just fine, and that I was making up problems in my head. He also said that we had promised each other a great 1-year relationship, and now I was just giving up. I'm actually not someone who quits things easily. But the way he handled this topic, with such a strong focus on what he wants, rather than how I might feel, made me even more frustrated. And at this point, I don't even feel like I can bring up how I feel, because it would just make him angrier and he wouldn't consider what I say. Now I'm wondering if I should have even started this relationship in the first place. Am I being unreasonable for ending things? I do not want to feel guilty. Stories number 16. Aita for accusing my daughter's mother of making me a deadbeat. So, I, 44M, am fairly well off. I'm high up in the company where I work and money's no problem for my wife, 33F, and our 2 kids. When I was 17, I wasn't the type of person that you'd want to be a father. My own father was a terrifying presence. I almost flunked high school. My high school girlfriend Sophia left me after I got held by the cops one night, and in a double whammy, she moved to Scotland with her dad for university in Edinburgh. Sophia was pregnant and never told me. She never kept in touch. I wasn't looking her up in Scotland. I feel like I had a right to know. Ironically, her leaving made me get my life together and I did very well in university. Sometime when we were 18, she gave birth to my daughter Inessa. Well, Inessa knew who I was and so she decided to contact me, telling me I was her father. Sophia and Inessa had moved back to the country, different city, and I flew out to meet her. I saw a picture of her after she contacted me. She looks just like my mother, so no need for a DNA test. I avoided seeing her mom and I spent all the time I could with her, getting to know her and learning all that I'd missed. Here's the kicker, I gave my kids the best life possible but she struggled her entire life. After Sophia's dad died, they had a bad time in Scotland and even briefly moved with her mom to Russia. They're doing good now, because my Inessa's got a great job in the same field I started out in. It made me mad. I could have provided for her. She could have gone to the fancy schools that my kids go to. She could have gotten new shoes, clothes, games every birthday and Christmas. She didn't even have her father to teach her how to drive. I didn't even pay child support. It makes me upset I didn't do right by her. When I met her mom again, it was tense. I laid out everything I wrote in a calm manner and my daughter made me leave as her mother was going to cry. I met Inessa the day after when I left and we've talked every night since, but we haven't brought that up. My wife told me I was an asshole to tell her mother that and demanded I apologize, but I couldn't help but feeling like I wasn't wrong. However, a few days ago, my wife told me she's pregnant and she talked to me about the situation in terms of what if I passed before my child was born, and since then I've felt like a major asshole because Sophia did a much better job with Inessa than other single parents I knew like my own father. Comments. OOP on if Sophia thought he was dangerous, not me, but around our neighborhood my father was always kind of a boogeyman. He wasn't conventionally powerful or anything, but he was cruel, kept bad company, was abusive to me and always made Sophia feel uncomfortable. I think me getting held by the police kind of said to her that I would be no better than he was. OOP on his arrest, and if Sophia was protecting him from his father, it wasn't anything that serious with the cops. I don't even have a criminal record. My father was lecherous but he wouldn't have harmed Sophia. Me, however. I think he could have beat me to within an inch of my life if he knew she was pregnant. And she knew that, so maybe she felt like she was protecting me. Thinking on it now just makes me realize how wrong I was to have said those things to her. OOP on why his wife reacted as she did. My wife knew she was pregnant before I told her about Inessa and flew out to meet her. She admittedly told me so late because she knew I already had a lot to process, but when she knew I was less emotional about it, told me to think about what she and our unborn baby would do if I died today and to look at Sophia with those lenses. When I thought about it like that I couldn't help but see myself as a major asshole. Update 1. I figured that I'd post an update since I've met with my daughter Inessa and her mother Sophia again. I went to the city that Inessa lives in for a business trip and she agreed to meet me. I went to Sophia's home and took the time to talk to Sophia while Inessa was changing. I did what most of you, and my wife, recommend and apologize to Sophia. I told her I was hurt I couldn't be there for her and Inessa, but that she did an incredible job, better than I would have been able to do before I got my life on track, and I admire how much stronger than me she is for doing it all despite all she faced. This brought tears to her again, but thankfully she hugged me and forgave me. She then apologized to me for not telling me when I was older, but told me it was that at first she was afraid of my father and later on she didn't want to disrupt my life. I told her it didn't matter and all that matters is Inessa and her happiness. When I went to dinner with Inessa, I gave her an old photograph of my mother as a gift and she thought it was some old-timey photo of herself at first because they look so similar. I told her about my own terrible father and why it hurt me so much that I didn't get to be there for her because I had this notion that it's a father's duty to always help his child, guide them, teach them and love them, and they're a failure if they weren't. I told her I was sorry I made her mother cry, but no, now she was a better mother and father to her than I could have been at that time. She also forgave me, and when she called me dad, she'd just been saying father before, which was still adorable cause of her mix of a Russian and Scottish accent. For the first time as she hugged me it was the best feeling in the world. Although I'd booked a hotel for the night, Inessa insisted I stay with her and Sophia. We wound up staying up for hours watching old home movies of Inessa as a kid, which she converted into digital from tape somehow, and even though I couldn't be there for any of that, I do feel better about it. Before I left, I promised Inessa that I'd always be there for her and if she ever needed anything, to just ask me and I'd take a flight to see her that day. When I got home, my wife told me I did the right thing in apologizing to both of them and that I should see her for Christmas and that our kids would be fine without me for once. So, I thank you guys for recommending that I apologize. It feels like a weight has been lifted and I can be there for Inessa without regrets. Update 2. I, 47M, have 4 children, 3 with my wife, 36F, and 1 daughter from a prior relationship. My daughter is almost 30 and she mostly grew up in Scotland. However, her mother's family is Russian and she spent a lot of time visiting there as a child and actually went to high school there before moving to Edinburgh for university. She currently lives in Vancouver with her mother. I live in a city near Toronto, so different ends of the country, but I go to see her once a month. I visited my daughter this past weekend for her engagement party and I brought my son with me. He's much younger than she is and is very impressionable, and he really looks up to his big sister and he's her favorite sibling. She wouldn't say, but I just know. My son's in elementary school and they're doing a current events thing, and of course, Russia and Ukraine are always in the news. So, he started asking his sister about Russia and the war, and my daughter only praised Russian soldiers and how they're brave and fighting for their country. It got to the point where my daughter even told her brother she would take him on a trip to see Russia when he was old enough. She started teaching him words and phrases in Russian. Now I get it, my daughter is Russian. She only ever speaks with her mother in it, she makes their food, gets really formal and calls me father sometimes, and her apartment is like a mix of Russian and Scottish. But I don't want my son thinking that Russia is the good guys in this war. I get why my daughter would think that, but I disagree. So on Sunday before we left I talked to her about it. I told her that I don't want her telling her brother propaganda. She just got upset and said she wasn't praising the war but just her people and her country, and she's proud of them. I told her that she's Scottish instead, and she also speaks Gaelic and has a rich heritage there she could tell her brother about, but she said she would if he asked, but he wasn't interested in Scotland. I left things there because I didn't think that she was going to listen. When I got home, it turns out that my daughter messaged my wife about it, and my wife was very upset with me. She said I was out of line and that my daughter obviously has a very different view of Russia, and that I know from all the news I watch that the people of Russia suffer and there is a difference between supporting people and nation. My wife also reminded me that my daughter is terrified of flying and there's no chance she's ever going to take our son on vacation anywhere. She told me to call and apologize, but I didn't press the topic, so I don't see why I should. Was I wrong here? Comments. OOP on if his daughter supports Putin. My daughter does not support Putin, I will say that much. She has a poster of that Navalny man up in her apartment. I don't know much about him, but from Reddit I know he was against Putin. Stories number 17. AITA for uninviting my boyfriend to Hawaii. I, 28F, am going to Hawaii with my family in September. My aunt is paying for a rental house and car, so the only thing we have to pay for is our flights. Significant others are invited, so my boyfriend, 28M, is going with me. My boyfriend is Filipino, and gets asked if he's Hawaiian, so he likes to make jokes that he's Hawaiian and has family that live there. He says they live on the island, Kamehameha. Since finding out that we're going to Hawaii, the jokes have ramped up a lot. He makes the joke almost every day, sometimes multiple times a day. When we try to plan things to do on our trip, he brings up the joke and doesn't stop until things get heated. I'm just trying to make this a fun trip and I feel like I can't with him continually making this joke. He even brings it up to other people when we mention going to Hawaii. I think the joke is annoying and offensive. I have asked him to stop so many times and he still makes the jokes. He knows it bothers me, but does it to push my buttons. Well, today I was fed up. I told him he can't go if he keeps making the joke. I feel like we will fight on the trip if he keeps making the joke, or he'll annoy my family. I told him he needs to stop or I'm not taking him. He told me he would rather not go than be nagged about a dumb joke. I was really looking forward to this trip with my family and my boyfriend. We've both been to Hawaii, but not with each other, and he's into surfing, so I was excited for him to be able to surf for a week while I can to lay out and watch him. Now I feel like this trip is getting ruined. Am I the asshole? Should I just get over the joke and let him go? Stories number 18. Aita for leaving my husband because he put our tenancy at risk. My husband, 24M, and I, 24F, have been together for 10 years, married for almost 3. Yes, we were together young. Before this happened, we, my FIL, husband and I, were homeless living in tents. After a fishing accident my FIL had to go for hospital and was in there for 3 months after major surgery. My MIL is a drug addict, always has been, always will be. My MIL and FIL have been living with us in our government-subsidized housing for 4 years now. We got married in May of 2022. FIL started living with us because we didn't want him to go back to being homeless, living in a tent after surgery. We were trying to be kind, but MIL wormed her way in and out at first. Fast forward to now and I need them out. I have had more than enough over this, and I've explained this many times to my husband. I've had many panic attacks and there have been so many arguments. My husband seems to be okay with them staying with and doing drugs in our house, aka methadone, which is a Class A drug. The very last break for me was when MIL was found in the bathroom, overdosing on methadone. I now have trauma about going into the bathroom because of where we found her. This was on the 20th of December, 2024. Nothing happened on my husband's part. Nothing. Then we got breached earlier in March by our landlord due to overcrowding, which is something I now agree with. This breach meant that the issue of overcrowding needed to be resolved within 14 days, however, our landlord, seemingly trying to understand our situation, gave us until the next house inspection, which happens every 3 months. This was obviously a mistake. Instead of letting that time go, I gave my husband until the 31st of March to make his parents leave. That 14-day period of time started on the 7th of March and ended on the 21st of March, so we are now officially breaking the law for having them still stay with us. Housing content: after 2 breaches, our tenancy is on the line and we could be evicted. Not just his parents. All of US. Apparently, according to my husband, they've been doing their best to move ASAP, but all this means is that they've been getting paperwork together for government housing, that's it. No packing, no organizing alternative accommodation, nothing. Please note that after 4 years, they have most definitely taken over this small 2-bedroom unit that is only meant to be for 2 adults. We agreed to this when we signed the tenancy agreement. On Friday, the 21st of March, I spent all day with my mum trying to figure out what to do about the situation. Ultimately, I came to the conclusion that I'm not being treated by my husband the way I need to be treated and that I wanted to leave my husband. This ALS 90 lead me to making the decision of calling the police, and my goal of doing this was to get my in-laws removed from the property. I did not tell my husband this because this has been attempted a few times in the past, this year alone. I've also been talked out of calling the police in the past few weeks. The police turned up, my husband was surprised. I was serious about it, I wanted them gone, out of our house. We were spoken to separately as per policy. What I told officer I spoke to was that I wanted them removed from the property and that they were overstating their welcome. I also mentioned the drug use. Then we went back to the other police officers who were speaking with my husband. It took a while to process, but the end decision was that my husband didn't agree to his parents being removed from the property. Again, this took me a minute to process. The police offered couple counseling services, told us, the rest is up to you, and left. Nothing has happened about getting the parents out since. I am going to remove myself from the situation during the day over the few days to let my husband think about everything, and then on Monday the 31st of March, I will be separating myself and living with my mum until further notice. So Aita for leaving my husband because he put our tenancy at risk. Update. Thank you for all your kind words and advice. I have made up my mind that I am going to pack my bags and leave first thing in the morning because I do realize after all the comments how badly I have fucked up. I did marry young and he was giving me so many red flags, but I married him anyway because I wanted to be love. This is not love, this is torture. There is not way in hell I would put my children through this, so why should I go through it before they do? There are going to be a lot arguments in the morning, but I need to protect myself and at least I have my mum to stay with. I will be looking for accommodation ASAP and leaving him with the rent of this place so I can afford something for myself. Thank you everyone for your words of support. I will update in the future. Stories number 19. Help. I just got my brother's results and it looks like he's not biologically related to any of us. Context: I am a 27-year-old woman, my brother is 20, we were born in Venezuela, but our parents are 100% Galician, Spanish, and we have lived in Spain for almost 18 years now. We moved when I was 9 and he was about 2. I took my test almost a year ago and was obsessed. I loved all the information it gave me. I persuaded my mom and my first cousin, my dad's brother's daughter, to also take it months ago. I wasn't able to convince my dad, but I finally managed to convince my brother to take it. He doesn't care about this kind of stuff much, so I promised I'd manage it for him, and when I got the results, I'd do a reveal for him, kind of like a gender reveal for babies. Well, I got the results on Tuesday and I haven't been able to tell anyone the results. I've talked with Ancestry customer support and they told me the results are right and it is the correct person, but that they're looking into it. Anyway, basically, my brother doesn't appear in my matches. And in my brother's matches, I don't show up, and neither does my mom, and neither does my cousin from my dad's side. In his matches I only see people I've never heard of. None of my matches show up in his. His ethnicities are different too. My mom has 60% Portuguese, for example. I got 40% Portuguese, I think my dad has a bit too, and that's why I got more than 30%. My brother doesn't have any Portuguese at all. Another super weird thing, he has 44% Indigenous Americas, Colombia and Venezuela. My mom doesn't have that. I don't have that. My cousin, dad's side, doesn't have that. Another thing, my brother has 12% South Italian. I don't have any Italian and neither do my mom or cousin. I'm freaking out because it's not like my mom cheated, because then at least he'd be my half-brother and related to my mom. He can't be adopted. I was 6 when my mom was pregnant with him. I remember all of it. I remember them telling me she was pregnant and that I'd have a baby brother. I remember hospital visits. Hell, I remember when he was born, when I held him for the first time in the hospital and he was so tiny. Could they have done an egg and sperm donation thing? Does that even happen in Venezuela in 2004? I am 100% sure I am biologically my parents, so I know they aren't infertile. Or weren't when they conceived me. Could simply Ancestry have lied to me and got the wrong person? I am so confused. Has this happened to anyone before? I am scared of asking him to try another DNA company because I don't want him to ask why. I am scared of telling my parents in case I reveal some huge secret. But my mom seemed normal when she knew my brother took a test. I don't know what steps to take moving forward. Edit, I will address some comments here. He's never had bone marrow surgery. Many people have asked if my brother looks different from my parents and me. This is something I never questioned because I had no reason to, but my brother has darker skin than us. It is darker but not enough to ever think he wasn't biologically related to us. His nose certainly is different and so is his mouth. He is shorter than my dad and me, but taller than my mom. He is the shorter guy in our family, but I think he's still growing. Hair texture and color is very similar to all of us. Curly and brown hair. Though his hair is darker. Ours is much lighter. My dad is almost blonde and I have very light brown hair too. His eyes are very dark brown. My dad has green, my mom light brown, and I have hazel. When it comes to personality, he is just like my dad. Nothing stands out about his personality in terms that would make me think he isn't biologically related. He is and will always be my brother. I don't care about DNA, he doesn't show up as a match for me at all. I search his name and he doesn't appear. Neither do I show up in his matches, nor neither does my mom. There are no CMS shared. Someone asked how much CM I have with my mom and it's 3481. With my paternal cousin I share 901 CM. My mom is 60% Portuguese, 33% Spanish, 5% Ireland, and 2% Wales. I am 58% Spanish, 40% Portuguese, 1% Irish, 1% France. My dad hasn't taken a test. My brother is 44% indigenous Venezuela and Colombia, 36% Spanish, 12% South Italy, 4% Basque, 4% North of Africa. Edit 2. I would love to respond to everyone but there are so many comments. I will address some things here. My brother did not prank me. I saw him spit in the tube and I myself put the tube into its box and later on I personally put it in the post box. The saliva in the tube that I sent was 100% his. A few have mentioned that it is weird that we have such a big age gap and that possibly my mom stopped being as fertile by the time my brother was born. I was an accident that happened when both my parents were 19, so my mom was still pretty young when she had my brother. It is indeed possible that she wasn't fertile and used an egg donor, but if that happened, I'm sure it wasn't because of her age. As for the results not being my brother's and it being an ancestry mistake, many of you pointed out things that I hadn't thought about. Like, if I got someone else's results then that somebody would have got my brother's results. Therefore, I'd have matched with him, anyway. And I didn't, so nobody else got his results. The other thing is that if it was a random person's test it really would be a crazy coincidence that the results are of a Venezuelan and not a random European or Asian. It's too much of a coincidence that it's Venezuelan DNA. The consensus seems to be baby swapping in the hospital or informal adoption because my mom's baby died. A few have said fake pregnancy before an adoption, but I felt the baby kicks with my own hands and face, so that one isn't right. I don't know what it is. I have been mentally preparing myself all day. Tomorrow morning I will call my mom and ask her directly if they had any help conceiving him and or if he's adopted. Those two would be the better options. If it's neither, well, let's just hope it's one of those options. Thank you all for your messages. It really means a lot. You're the only people that know that this is happening and it was a nice feeling to let it out and have so much support. Many have asked for an update, so I will try to come back here if I get answers. Thank you again. Update 1. A few days ago I made a post here talking about how I got my brother's ancestry DNA results and found that he didn't match with me, my mom, or my paternal cousin, making it seem like he isn't biologically related to my family. As many of you, and Ancestry customer support, pointed out, it was unlikely that the test was wrong. It was much more likely that the test was right and that there was something else going on. Namely, that my brother really wasn't biologically my brother. I talked to my mom last Saturday. I'd planned to just call her on Friday, but I was really stressed out and nervous and hadn't slept at all, and needed to work. So I figured it made more sense to wait for the weekend. Plus, I wanted to talk to her face to face. I preferred this and I think my mom would prefer this too considering the topic I wanted to talk about. Those are all irrelevant details that I don't know why I'm explaining. I'm sorry. Soon after I got to my parents' house, I got my dad to go buy me some stuff in the supermarket, and used the time alone to ask my mom if she remembered weeks earlier when I got my brother to do the test. It had happened in their house and my brother had struggled to spit, so it was memorable. She said that of course she remembered and asked me if I finally got the results. I told her that yes, I got them, but that the results were strange. She asked me what that meant, and then I directly asked her if my dad and her had used fertility help to have my brother. I guess something in my tone and face freaked her out because she suddenly got very serious and said something like, "No. Why are you asking that?" So I told her that the results showed that he wasn't her biological son. And he wasn't related to me, or my dad's niece, or anyone that she and I had matched with on Ancestry. And that it was very weird, but DNA can't be wrong. And I asked her if he really was theirs biologically, or if they used embryo donations, or if he was adopted. Basically she was in disbelief about what I was saying and she said the test must be wrong and of course my brother was hers. I showed her my brother's results, the ethnicity estimates, I opened my app and showed her my matches and compared, etc. She simply didn't believe any of it. She said that it was wrong. I reminded her that she and I matched. That she and I matched with some second and third cousins that we knew. That I matched with my paternal cousin. I told her that it is not wrong. That companies lie and they suck, but it's not lying about this. Matching people with DNA is very easy and final, and they have no reason to lie. I explained how I spent so much time talking with Ancestry support trying to figure out if there was a mistake and they assured me there wasn't one. I explained to her also how my brother's results couldn't have got mixed up with someone else's because what were the odds of getting a Venezuelan person's results and not just some random person from the US since that's where most clients are. At this point she was freaking out and shaking and confused and I 100% believe her. She is being honest. My brother was conceived naturally and she gave birth to him. When my dad came back I told him the same thing and asked the same questions. The same argument as before happened except it was now the two of them. He said he is theirs and that the test is wrong. Anyway my mom was angry and crying and my dad was very serious and I finally brought up the possibility of my brother being switched on accident by nurses at the hospital. I was the first to say it out loud but obviously everyone had been thinking it. They denied that they were given another baby. But they also didn't seem totally sure. My mom was shaking and my dad was mostly quiet. They said that he was taken to a room with a lot more newborns and always slept there. He was barely in my mom's room. My parents said they don't remember if there were any tags on him with his name or their names. They think there weren't tags on him. But there for sure were tags in the little baby's cribs in that room. But of course, if they put the wrong baby in the wrong crib, that was it. They said that basically he was born, they cut the umbilical cord, kinda wiped all the stuff off of him, put him in my mom's arms, and then quickly took him away. The next time they saw him he was much cleaner and softer and they say he didn't have some sort of white film on him. He seemed like the same baby, but in my opinion, after seeing him maybe 10 minutes at most right after birth with the crazy amount of hormones and adrenaline on both sides, would you really be able to recognize a newborn? I don't know. Anyway, that is the update. My parents assured me he was conceived naturally and that my mom gave birth to him. I believe this is the truth. They were way too shocked and emotional for it to be a lie. We bought a bunch of new tests. Ancestry for my dad and 23andMe for my parents and my brother. Also, my dad said he would investigate how to do paternity and maternity tests with a doctor. They will tell my brother today. They'll tell him and then I'll give him access to the account I'd made for him on Ancestry so that he can freely look at his results and do what he pleases with his DNA. Well, like I said, that conversation with my parents happened on Saturday. Yesterday on Sunday I visited them again and they seemed very disturbed. Very worried. So I am concerned about them and my brother, and I really hope that whatever the results are to the other DNA tests, that nobody loses their minds. I think my parents will love my brother just the same. He is their son. But I know that if he isn't biologically theirs it means that there is a person out there that is biologically their son. My parents will go crazy trying to find him if that's the case. And it's Venezuela. Feels impossible to find someone there, and he might not even be there considering all the migration the last years. And what if he had a bad life? A bad family? I don't know. I'm so worried about this so I can't even imagine how my parents feel. As for my brother, I think he will take it well. He's really strong, understanding and smart, and he never cared about blood, he's always said as much. I think it will shock him and disturb him as well, but I don't think he'll go as crazy. If the results are negative, I'll make sure to be there for him if he needs me and be the best sister I can be. Anyway, I'm sorry about there not being much of an update. There's no new information. I wish there was. But not yet I guess. Thank you for all your support in the last post. I hope you have a good day. Update 2. Hi everyone. I made some posts here 6 months ago. Here's the first post and here's the second post. Basically, I convinced my brother to take a DNA test and when the results came back, he didn't match with any of us. Not with me, not with my mom, and not with my paternal cousin. I came here to ask your guys' opinions after Ancestry customer support told me there had been no mistakes. Many of you have been demanding me to update. So here I am. So after that update I posted, we talked to my brother and told him the situation. He was understandably shocked and confused. My parents and him got some tests done at a local lab. Paternity and maternity tests. They came out negative. My brother is not their biological son. It was difficult for everyone. It was news nobody expected. 6 months later, everyone is better. Obviously, feelings won't change. Family isn't only biological. Everyone is on the same page about that, so there are no issues in that regard. However, especially when it comes to my brother and my parents, there's now huge questions that no one seems to have an answers to. What happened to the baby my mother gave birth to? What happened to my brother's biological parents? So yes, that's what's been happening the last 6 months. In regards to my parents' baby, my biological brother, we have no clue. My mother gave birth in Venezuela and my parents have tried everything when it comes to that. The hospital has no idea. They deny anything happened. They do not have any records of the babies born there. Apparently they lost all documents 15 years ago, so everything before that is lost forever. We all suspect that's a lie. My parents are planning a trip to Venezuela later this year, and hopefully they'll actually be able to. If you follow the news you'll know politics there right now is a mess. They'll try to go to the hospital in person and try to figure it out. But there's not much hope there. The only good thing is that it was a private hospital, not public, so that kind of means that probably if it was a baby switch situation, then the baby left with a middle-class family. Most people in Venezuela are poor, so that other family potentially being middle-class narrows it down. But still, it's Caracas, which is huge. So, in regards to my brother's parents, he's been in contact with a bunch of the people he matched with on his ancestry test, and he's also done tests for a bunch of different companies. The issue is that none of them are particularly close matches. The closest match he has is 72 cm and it's a guy from Cuba that now lives in the US. So it doesn't really make sense for Venezuela either. Venezuelans don't take DNA tests. At least not while they're living there, and none of the people he's talked with has known anything. We are at a loss in how to keep searching with him too. Most of his matches either live in the US or don't respond to him, and that is all. I'm sorry that this update doesn't really bring much to light. We don't know. It's been a huge, huge shock to the family. It's been difficult, especially for them. I hope one day my biological brother, if he's out there, takes a DNA test. Similarly, I hope my brother gets to find some family members. If anything to know health history. Thank you. Stories number 20. AITH for telling my neighbor I dated her husband. I, 33F, became friendly with my neighbor, 37F, let's call her Emily, after I helped her move a few boxes into our building while her husband, 35M, was in the hospital. I didn't meet Emily's husband until a few weeks later when she invited me over to dinner as thanks. When I arrived first, Emily's husband had run out to pick up some wine, but when he came back I was shocked to see Matt, a guy I had gone on 3 dates with a year ago before he suddenly ghosted me. He had a terrible poker face and tried to pretend like he didn't recognize me. I don't play those games. I asked how long they had been married and Emily said, 3 years. She recognized there was tension and asked if we knew each other. He said no. I said yes and told Emily that I had gone on dates with him a year ago. She became very upset and asked me to leave, which I did. The next day, Emily reached out and said that she didn't appreciate that I lied about when I dated her husband. He told her we had dated 4 years ago, before they were married. I didn't even live in this city 4 years ago. And even if we had dated 4 years ago, they had been engaged at that point. Either way, he would have been cheating. I sent her screenshots of our texts from the year before and from Bumble of his profile, which was still active. She never responded, but when I saw her in the lobby yesterday, she wouldn't even look me in the eye. I don't know if they're still together and Emily hasn't responded to my texts. So AITA for telling her the truth. Stories number 21. AITA for not wanting the car my boyfriend bought me. I know the title makes me sound ungrateful, I'm sorry how to word it. So I, 22F, got a car as a graduation present when I was 18 from my father, who has since died of cancer. It was only a couple years old, and it's a pink buggy. Edited to add at the request of a commenter, it's a 2013 model, I absolutely adore it, I've always been pretty girly and it was the perfect car for me. I wasn't some spoiled little rich kid though, I paid my own insurance and gas and my father saved for years to get me my dream car if I graduated with a 4.0, which I did. I take such good care of it inside and out and everyone in my life knows how much it means to me, for aesthetic reasons as well as sentimental. Anyways, I turn 23 next week and today I was inside watching TV when my boyfriend, 38M, who I thought was running errands, came home excited and told me to come outside. I ran out and saw a light silver car in the driveway. I was kinda confused because I already have a car but I was trying not to show it. I asked what year it was and he said 2001. He told me he bought it off some guy for $700, and the only repairs it needed was new tires and brakes, saying, "You can finally sell your bug now." He wants to use that money to take a vacation after travel bans lift, too. I told him nicely that I appreciated the gesture but that I already had a car, that I love, and that's much newer and more reliable. He got pissed off and told me how ungrateful I was being and that I was some spoiled little kid who didn't know what it was like to work for anything, which is BS. I pay most of our bills and have a savings. He spends all his on weed and video games. He then basically told me, with much more cussing and screaming, that he wasn't gonna be driven around in some ugly little kid car anymore and it's embarrassing that his younger girlfriend drives him to work and events etc. in something straight out of a 2000s teen movie. I told him he could use the car he'd just bought to drive himself around then and he said no because he doesn't like driving, he wants me to do it, just not in my bug. At that point I was at a loss and went back inside and he then kicked the side of my bug, got in the silver car, and took off. Where he is now and I don't care. I feel like he got me a gift for him and not me, and proceeded to insult me for telling him I don't want it. I told my friend about it and she took his side, saying I need to take his feelings about it into account and that my bug is kind of embarrassing, and I'm too old for it now. What to think. I love my car and I don't want to change who I am just because I'm a few years older now, but I also don't want this car to ruin my relationship. I also feel bad because I basically said, F you, to his gift, which was pretty expensive as far as gifts go. I don't want to get rid of it, but if I'm the asshole for being stubborn and reacting the way I did then I'll definitely apologize and maybe give it to my 15-year-old cousin so I can still have a connection to it. Let me know, Aita. Relevant comments. Why not keep both cars? I have no problem keeping both, one for me to drive and one for him, but I don't feel comfortable driving a much older and unreliable car when I have a perfectly fine car to drive both of us around in. I also didn't appreciate him demanding I sell my car, which he's insisting. The new car comes with the stipulation I sell my current one, so he feels more comfortable socially when I would feel uncomfortable physically. I drive him around because we go places together a lot of the time and because I enjoy driving, but after today it feels more like he expects me to be his chauffeur. I see what you're saying though, maybe when things have cooled off he'll let me keep mine and I'll be willing to discuss driving the silver one when I take him places. Commenter 1. How did you even meet and start dating a 35-year-old man when you were 19? Didn't anybody comment on how inappropriate the age difference was? Has anyone commented on it since? Was he always a lazy broke stoner? Reply. I'm a little embarrassed to admit this now reading everyone's comments and realizing how inappropriate our age gap is, but I met him because he went to the same college as my dad. They'd both played football and my dad mentored him a bit because he would volunteer with the team long after he graduated. He'd followed me on Facebook for years and reached out when my dad died, we got to talking and hanging out, etc. Edited because it was misleading to say he went to college with my dad, they didn't go together just to the same one and met there. Commenter 2. That's sick. Not only did he lie in wait probably counting down the days until you turned 18, he also moved in on you when you were lost and vulnerable after your dad's death. He's a predator. I'm so sorry. Reply. Seeing it typed like this really hits hard lol. I'm kinda disgusted at him and at myself over it. I didn't see it at the time, didn't even really see it yesterday even, but yeah. I thought he was being genuine. Was the BF the dad's friend or colleague? Both, kind of. My dad was almost 10 years older than him and volunteered at his old college for a few years while my BF was going there as a student athlete. They got to know each other in sort of a mentor-mentored dynamic, and they stayed in touch mostly through social media in the years after. Would her dad approve of her relationship? I always thought my dad would approve because they knew each other but now I'm thinking definitely not. When someone told her to keep her bug, Pinky. I love this comment because my dad called me Pinkie Pie, from My Little Pony which I loved as a kid. Some of my last memories with him were driving him around in my bug, windows down playing some cheesy pop music while he sang along with me even though he didn't know all the words. That's exactly why, from an emotional standpoint, I don't want to get rid of my bug. I'm definitely considering ending this with my BF because of yours and others' fresh viewpoints. Update. I definitely hear you guys loud and clear. I don't know if I was willfully ignorant before or just naive but I realize now that this goes deeper than just a car. The longer I think about it the madder I get and everyone's comments are making me feel like I'm not so crazy anymore, so thank you. I now get that I'm getting nothing out of this relationship, and him kicking my car honestly did scare me and I don't want him to eventually do that to me. He texted me a little bit ago saying I needed to choose the bug or him, along with some name calling etc. So, I've decided to choose my bug, and by extension my dad, and break up with him, cut him out completely. I reconnected with my older brother who lives a town over and explained everything to him. He didn't know any of it. He's letting me stay with him for as long as I need because I'm scared of what my ex will do. I'm taking all valuables, documents, etc. and informing the police about him kicking my car. My neighbor also watched the argument and is going to vouch for me. He isn't on the lease so I can easily kick him out, but we were planning on moving anyways, so I'll just find my own place now. What he'll do. Maybe he can sleep in his new car, smiley face. Stories number 22. AIO by not wanting to go to my father's wedding because of comments his fiancée has made about my autistic younger sister. Hi everybody. This is written on mobile so I apologize if this looks odd. So I, 22F, talked to my, 49M, father the other day and he told me that he and his fiancée, 52F, have finalized a date for their wedding. In this time my, 21F, sister went NC with both our dad and his fiancée, let's call her Lisa. Lisa has never had children, so when my sister and I were introduced to her she became very motherly towards us even though we were both adults when we met her. My sister is a smart, funny, witty person who does struggle with mental illness due to trauma as well as she is medium support needs autistic. Elle knows about all of this and previously was very supportive of helping her work through these traumas and grow as a person. Within the past year and a half things have gotten worse and Lisa started belittling and mocking my sister during her meltdowns and even has gone as far as to telling me that kid needs to be drugged up after I reached out to Lisa about how to support my sister during these episodes. Now because of all of this my sister and I are NC with Lisa as well as my sister is NC with our father as he has also belittled and mocked her during meltdowns. I should mention that my sister and I were in foster care from the ages of 11 and 12 up until we both aged out of care. My sister has a really good relationship with our foster parents while I don't, which I am okay with because I'm glad my sister has someone she can call her mom. This is where I feel stuck. My father is really the only parent I have left as my mom left when I was a kid. In the end my sister will still have a mom and if I completely cut off my father I'll be alone. I want to stand with my sister and if she doesn't go then I want, but part of me wants to still hold on to having a father. Regardless of my sister going, I don't really want to support someone who is so ableist and often even racist at times by going to the wedding and pretending that everything is fine knowing that my presence is only tolerated. TLDRAIO by being unsure of going to my dad's wedding knowing he's marrying someone who hates both of his kids. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, Nor. Where was your dad when you two were in foster care? He doesn't seem to care about you at all. Reply. He was part of the reason why we were in foster care, but it was more so reactive abuse rather than straight up abuse. He's done therapy and anger management courses and claims he's better. Commenter 2, you're not overreacting at all, and your sister is lucky to have you in her life. I'm sorry your father can't or won't stand up for her himself. You're already NC with his fiancée, so it sounds like going would subject you to having to be in her presence anyway. Reply, I feel more lucky to have her because she's hilarious. Going might just make me feel worse while also potentially ruining a happy day for my dad. Commenter 3, all you have to do is see your father without the wife. Just go have lunch with him or to a movie with him etc. You do not have to be around the wife. You don't have to interact with the wife much at all if you set that boundary with them. But no, you are not overacting. Talk to your sister. And yes, medications can help with meltdowns. It took me years to find one that helped that didn't make me drowsy or have the opposite reaction. Not saying Elle didn't take it too far, especially since she is a racist. But she's not exactly wrong. Sometimes it does help or you got to keep trying different meds until it does. Reply, I agree with medication being a lifesaver. I myself have a panic disorder and treat it with medication. My sister is now on meds for her anxiety and it's really helped her. In fact she went to the corner store by herself, with me on the phone for support, for the first time in her life. That was just one of many instances where Lisa made an already difficult situation worse. She has done other things, that was just one example. I really appreciate your feedback though. I'm so glad you found something that helps you. That can often be a long stressful journey. Commenter 4, NTA for feeling conflicted about going to the wedding. It's tough when family dynamics are strained, especially when it involves someone who should be supportive but ends up being hurtful instead. Standing by your sister in this situation shows a lot of integrity and love. If your gut is telling you that attending the wedding might not be the right move due to how they've treated your sister, it's totally valid to listen to that. It's important to protect your mental health and the values you hold dear, even if it means making tough decisions about family relationships. It's okay to prioritize your and your sister's well-being over attending a wedding where you won't feel comfortable or respected. Update. Just thought I would come back here and give everyone an update. I apologize for taking a bit to update. Unfortunately, this isn't a very positive update. On Thursday, I received the invitation to the wedding and had a conversation with my father, and I found out that he hadn't even invited my sister whatsoever or even told her about it. After finding that out and his half-assed reasons why he didn't invite her, I decided to not go to the wedding. That ended in a huge fight and a lot of hurtful things were said, and I've decided to completely cut contact with him and Lisa. After talking to him, I called my sister and let her know what happened without getting into too much detail and stressing her out, and she thanked me for always standing up for her. While it has been difficult and there has been a lot of tears, I think I made the right choice, and my partner and roommates agree, and they could see every time I talked to my father it would end in me having a meltdown. I'm thankful for everyone who left a comment. I made sure to read every single one, and I appreciate everyone taking the time to read my previous post. I hope everyone has a wonderful spring. TLDR, I cut off my father over his actions and previous actions. Top comments. Commenter 1, you made the right call. Family can be toxic, and it's clear you were looking out for your sister. Cutting ties for your mental health was necessary. Commenter 2, I just read your original post. You had stated if you didn't go to the wedding, you'd lose your father and be alone. OP, you made the right decision. Because sometimes, not having any parent in your life is better than having ableist asshole parents in your life. And you're not alone. You have your sister, who you rightfully prioritized. Your father abandoned you, leaving you in foster care or to age out. Who was the one constant in your life? Your sister. You did the right thing. You backed the one person who has always been there for you and got rid of the extra baggage that is your lowlife father. You don't find this update to be a good one, because you wanted to believe your father is a good person. He's not, OP. So you are so much better off. Even though you can't see it, this is a great resolution. Because your father showed you his true colors and made sure you knew he was not someone you want or need in your life. Kudos for standing up for your sister, rather than support the union of two grossly ableist people, including the father that very literally abandoned you and your sister for years. Stories number 23. Aita for disagreeing with my wife to alter my birthday gift that my friend gave me. So a friend of mine gave me frames with quotes and poems that resonated with me. I was really moved by his gesture and the thought he put into it. A couple days later, my wife said the photos in the frames are bad resolution and that she wants to print the same images in better resolution so it doesn't look pixelated. To be fair, the images were pixelated, but I told her that's a part of the gift and it means something to me. So I wouldn't want to replace the photos, even if they're exactly the same. Ship of Theseus. Today she went ahead and printed the new images, exactly the same image, dimensions etc., and replaced those in the frames from my friend. She said she'll still hold on to the photos my friend gave with the frames. I had no clue she was going to do it despite my explicit disapproval when she originally proposed the idea. This led to a huge argument between us, and she feels I'm being unreasonable because she's trying to improve the look of the photos while keeping the same image. Am I the asshole to be upset at her and wanting to keep the original gift with the slightly blurry images? Stories number 24. I hate my family. My wife and I got into it about our son, John, who has been shitting himself and acting like a baby for the last 2 years. We had our second son, Peter, 2 years ago, and John started regressing afterwards. He turned 6 this summer, and has to go into kindergarten this fall. My wife pushed for him to be kept out of kindergarten for an extra year because of his conduct issues. My mother-in-law has put it into my wife's head that she can just pray away our son's misbehavior. When he screams and wails, she prays. When he throws himself on the ground and beats his face on the floor, she prays. When he shits himself and it runs down into his shoes, she prays. While she's in the room praying, speaking in tongues and bawling her eyes out, I'm having to fucking deal with this goddamn mess. You know what makes it worse? John does all this shit on purpose. Peter cries because he needs changing or is hungry, and John has to outdo him. Every single time that anything happens with Peter, John has to one-up him, and goes overboard. John will purposefully shit himself, while making eye contact, and, sometimes, he'll smear it on the walls. I've caught him eating it, shit all over his hands and face, shrieking at me. My fucking wife, no matter how much I plead, won't listen to me that John is doing this on purpose. She thinks he's afflicted by a demon or some shit. I don't know what to do. She won't fucking deal with this like a normal fucking person, and I'm grasping at straws. On Friday, I had just done helping John bathe, because he refuses to actually clean himself and screams in the tub. I got him dressed, and then Peter started crying right as I finished putting John's clothes on. I knew what was coming. I instinctively shouted, no, but John started screaming at the top of his lungs, stomping his feet, and then started straining. His face turned beet red. I thought he was going to pass out, but instead he just shit all over himself. I was so fucking mad that I just broke down. John started laughing and slapping his hands on the ground like a monkey while screaming, "Change me." Over and over again. I couldn't. I couldn't do it anymore. I started screaming and cussing at him. I told him how much I fucking hate him. I told him that I wish I never had him, and that he's made my life unbearable. My wife came running in, tears already streaming down her face, yelling at me, telling me that I can say those things. I can't say those things. I can't tell the fucking truth. Then she has the audacity, the absolute and utter fucking arrogance to tell me to change him and give him another bath. You fucking do it. I screamed and yanked John's shit-filled pants and threw them at her. Shit went all over her and the floor, and she started puking as I pushed past her. I got in my car and left. I've been at a hotel over the weekend, and I don't know if I can go back home. 2 years of hell. 2 years of suffering. I can't go back. I don't know what to do. Edit. John doesn't have autism, or anything like that. His brain is fine. He's doing this to spite me and my wife, because he's jealous of Peter. He sees Peter getting attention, and he wants it. He was fine, absolutely fine, until Peter came along. John mocks me. He laughs at me when I have to wipe him. He laughs at me when I have to clean up his shit. I have to do everything at home. I work, and I have to do everything there too. My wife called and acted like nothing happened. She asked what I wanted, blueberry or chocolate waffles, when I got home. I can't handle this. I told her I don't know if I'm even coming home. Thanks for all the replies and messages, but there's no fixing this situation. John is beyond fixing. He wants to drive me insane, and I'm heading there. Stories number 25. Aita for telling a coworker about another coworker's dietary restriction. Recently we had an office party with lots of food. We made sure every dietary restriction was met, options for vegans, gluten-free, kosher. At the end of the party, all of the party, no one had touched the gluten-free items. My coworker, G, asked me if I wanted them or else she would throw them away. I said no, but I know our coworker was gluten-free and it might be good to offer her the leftovers. So G goes over to A's desk and says something along the lines of, "Hey, I heard you were gluten-free and wanted to know if you wanted these." A immediately turns around and gives me a nasty look. I was so confused. After G left, I went over to A's desk and asked her what was wrong. She said that she was disgusted that I am telling her secrets to everyone. And that she doesn't like people to know her personal business, and this is one of those things she doesn't like to tell others. I was shocked. When A told me she was gluten-free, she mentioned it so casually when discussing recipes. She also never said anything about it being a secret. I told her this and that I was just trying to be nice by making sure someone who could use the food had it. I said that I could have just taken them and asked her, and that it's just none of my business to spread around about her. She said it's basically the same as outing someone's sexuality. She has now been avoiding me at work for a week. We used to be good work friends. I'm confused, y'all. I really didn't know dietary restrictions were supposed to be a secret. Maybe it's just something I'm not aware about. So please LMK, AITA for telling a coworker about another coworker's dietary restriction. Stories number 26. AITA for making my date walk home after he brought a crackhead to our date. I've been gatekeeping this story for a few years and I am finally ready to share it. I, 24F, went out on a date with, let's call him Damien, 27M. We meet on Bumble, started chatting, FaceTimed a few times, and the banter was there. I got no creepy vibes and we seemed to hit it off really well. He seemed to have his life figured out, so I didn't think twice when he asked me on a date. To preface, I have standards. I only date people that have a job and are on track with some career, have a car, and don't live at home with parents. Roommates are fine as long as it's not their aunt or grandparents, etc. No baby daddies or baby mamas, because I don't have kids myself. Note, I love kids, I work with kids, and I do plan on having kids of my own one day. I just want to start a family from scratch. And finally, no criminals or felons. I feel like these are fairly good standards. Back to Damien, he seemed to meet all these requirements. Foreshadowing, I questioned and he confirmed. He told me he had an apartment near my university, he worked as a mechanic at his dad's shop, and whenever we'd FT he was in his Dodge Challenger, obvious red flag. He told me he didn't get paid until next Friday but he still wanted to see me this weekend. So we planned a park date. I would bring a blanket and snacks, he'd bring something for us drink. The next day he asked me to pick him up for our date so he could drink on our date and not have to worry about driving home intoxicated. I thought it was very responsible, and I agreed. I don't drink often because I'm allergic to alcohol. He said he would be off work at 5 p.m. and he was going to his parents' house to shower, since his dad's shop was right around the corner to his parents' house, another red flag. So, I could just pick him up there. Saturday night rolls around, I get all cute for our date. I head over to his parent house to pick him up, his car is in the driveway, and he comes strutting out, not holding anything. I asked him about the supposed drinks he was going to bring and he asks me to stop a gas station so he could pick up a beer. I needed gas so I reluctantly oblige. We pull up and he hops out and walks inside without asking me if I wanted anything or if I wanted to go in with him. So I started filling my tank, and then sat in my car. He got back in and immediately popped open a beer. Another red flag. I shot him a dirty look and stated he had to chug it because I would not be driving with an open container as it's against the law. He rolled his eyes, chugged the beer, I got back in the car and he said, "I guess I should have offered to fill your tank, huh?" And then burped. We get to the park, he grabs the blanket, and I grab the snacks, and we sit in the park and watched the sunset and chatted. The date was very romantic and was such a fun vibe, but it was during our conversations that I learned that, he's been to prison, he's on parole, he fled Detroit and came down to Atlanta to flee his gang, he can't drive because of a suspended license. He scams people and sells credit card information, to make passive income. I'm okay. At this point I wanted to leave but I had driven him 45 minutes from his parents' house. I didn't want to come off as a bitch and get murdered. So, I was just taking everything he said at this point with a grain of salt and being nice for my own safety. After the sunset I went to drive him home but I was starting to get hungry, he suggested we pull in the Wendy's and grab a bite. I was fine with it, I'm not picky. So as we're waiting in the drive-through line the car in front of us, hits the car in front of them. These two ladies pull over and are going at it in the parking lot. We pull forward, order our food, we pay separately per his request, okay whatever, at this point I know I'll never see him again so I'm indifferent. We get our food and I back into a parking spot with the prefect view to enjoy the Wendy's parking lot drama unfolding in front of us and eat. Little did I know this is where the evening really took a turn for the worst. This is the moment when we became the Wendy's parking lot drama. I kept my window slightly cracked, but Damien had his window all the way down. Shortly after getting settled, a navy blue SUV come flying towards my car and almost hits my driver's side door. I'm confused AF, I watch as a 45F, skinny, covered and scratched, cracked out looking blonde woman comes running out of the passenger side door and throws a 1.5 bottle of Tito's at my car. I lock my door and look at Damien like WTF. She comes over to my door and tries opening it but it's locked. Then she walks around the car and jumps head first into my car through his open window. She starts wailing on this man, I'm scream, what the fuck is happening? Who the F **** are you? She looks at me dead in the eyes and says, this is my baby daddy. We just got back from Florida yesterday, and he said he had to work late, but no, all while still smacking the ever-living shit out of him. My jaw was on the floor. He looked me with tears in his eyes, help me please, I looked at him, turned and calmly unlocked the door and said, get out. Then I looked at her and said, the door's unlocked if you want to hop out and please take your man with you. The crackhead continued to beat this man relentlessly. He continued to plead with me to help. While beating him she screamed, I can't believe I let you nut in me this morning. Finally over it, I scream, get the F*** out of my CR, then the banshee of a crackhead started screaming at me, hit him girl. Get him. Hit him. I was not as emotionally attached to him, as this woman very clearly was, so I just looked him in his eye one last time and told him very firmly to get the fuck out. At this point she had crawled out of my car, and yanked the door open. He stumbled out of the car attempting to gather the rest of his things and his beers. The crackhead stomped back to her car to get in the passenger side, at which point her obese mother sticks a crutch out the car window and says, if she gives him a ride home then I'll break her legs, and the woman responds, nah mama she's cool, we'll leave her alone. At which point I speed off shaking. A few minutes pass and I am getting bombarded with calls from Damien. Livid, I pick up. He's begging me to pick him up off the side of the road because after he started walking home then dumped a gallon of water on him when they pass him. He explained that she was just a sugar mama to him but he believed that we could have something really special. I laughed and asked how he could believe that I would let any kind of energy like that anywhere near my life, and asked if he really believed we were meant for each other. He said I was his soulmate, he didn't realize she had his location and he just needed to get home, and he would be able to work things out and make things better between us. I told him we were less than a 5-minute walk from campus so he should be able to get to his supposed apartment soon and handle whatever he needed to handle but I was no longer going to be a part of the equation. This is when he informed me that he does not in fact have a place near campus, but he lives with his parents and he was a 2-hour and 45-minute walk from home. So sad. I didn't care, I left him to his own devices. so Aita. Update, I'm glad that this horrible night brought so much joy to so many of you. I'm also flattered that so many think my post is AI generated. Unfortunately this was a real date, it's not even the craziest story of my outside days. I thought I'd give a little more context and let you know where I am now. This happened 3 years ago, I did in fact block him and never spoke or heard from him again. He and I were texting and FaceTiming for 2 weeks before our date and he lied straight through his teeth the entire time. She had shared his location through his phone while they were in FL and he forgot to turn it off. He told me a little bit about her, and her drug use, and that he was just with her until he found his wife. Honestly all I can say is that I can't stand A. Since then I've reconnected with an old friend from college who meets and exceed all my standards. He's 6 feet, built AF, works as an CS engineer, getting his master's at GA Tech, owns a home, owns his car, loves his mom, and our families get along. We've been dating around 2.5 years, my family adores him, my doggo loves him, and we're moving in together. Now I'm the red flag in our relationship, but I'm working on it because I love him and he deserves me at my best. Wish me luck. Stories number 27. Steal my skillet, I'll steal it back and put you in between a rock and a hard place. Simple and quick, my cousin stole a skillet I got from an old friend of my dad's. Found out about when I saw it in one of his pics he posted. Don't know how he got, but I was pissed. I knew where he lived and while it was hours away I want my skillet back. Recruited a friend who had certain skills and off we went. Cousin lived in an apartment and I knew what time he was gone. Place was cheap. And didn't have CCTV. Friend did his thing and got inside. He found the skillet which apparently cousin left soaking in the sink. We stopped by a couple places and ate at a restaurant and went home. Cousin visited a couple of weeks later and I feigned cleaning my place. He knew I made a stink of my missing skillet and he acted as if he wasn't the snake that stole it. As he was chatting up some of friends I made a loud noise and showed everyone my found skillet. Made a big show of where I found it and was thanking everyone and anyone for the discovery. Cousin looked like had swallowed fecal matter. He did make a stink about thinking someone broke into his house. He can't accuse of it because he'd have to admit stealing my skillet. If he did his parents would put him in a world of hurt. Stories number 28. First boyfriend. My young teen daughter just had her first boyfriend. He was so lovely to her, reassured her when she was upset. She felt like she had a great friend in him, and really trusted him. Prior to him asking her to date, they had an amazing friendship, and she had her guard down with him. It was the first time she ever felt butterflies in her stomach over another person. He bought flowers to school for her on her birthday. This was day 2 of their high school relationship. She had her first kiss with him. He invited her to dinner at his place with his parents. I spoke with his parents first to ensure our rules values aligned, and low-key, just tried to get a vibe check and ensure she'd be safe. I dropped her off at the door and me him and his parents, with his parents dropping her off home afterwards. They watched a movie in the family room, and had dinner then got ice cream. He blindsided her and broke up with her after 2 weeks. She was a little heartbroken, but also recognizes it was 2 weeks, and it's high school. He then asked her out again, and apologized, said he broke up with her out of anger, but regretted it afterwards. She felt like an idiot, and didn't want to date again. She thought they could still be friends, they had great banter, and she felt that he told her things he didn't tell anyone else and vice versa. He rang her yesterday and asked if, instead of dating, can you just suck my D.C.K. She froze and went silent. He hung up on her. Today, all of a sudden, after an absence from school this last week, he walked past her at break time and called her a slut in front of a whole crowd of her friends. My daughter, who would never ordinarily do this, went up to the female vice principal to discuss something unrelated, and then afterwards told her that about how 15 minutes ago, a boy called her a slut. And the teacher half laughed, and said, "Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. I'm so mad, I'm heartbroken for her, but I'm angry. I'm so fucking angry. I'm triggered. Fuck this kid, fuck that ignorant teacher." My daughter reached out for the first time, and you disregarded her. I wish I could fix it. She just wants me to listen and do nothing, so I will. But I just want to make it better. This is all the bullshit I thought I'd be able to protect my daughters from, and yet, I have to listen from the sidelines. Stories number 29. Wife goes on regular hikes with one particular person and lies about it. We live in Europe and my wife is into hiking. Recently joined a club and has been doing regular hikes on the weekend. First I didn't mind that she was gone every other Saturday, but lately it's been every weekend. I noticed a few weeks ago that she's also been going on hikes during the week to places about an hour or so from our city. I found out it was with some guy associated with the US military. That's fine since she said he was married and that they, her and the couple, all went together. This last weekend, she got a text late at night and she causally said she was going on a hike on that Monday. It looked fishy, so I looked through her messages when she was asleep and it was the guy texting so late. No problem, nothing wrong with that, but as I scrolled up, I saw that they had a few more hikes they've been on. Still not alarmed but definitely on guard. As she was leaving that morning, our son said he'd like to join her on a hike and she said, "It's gonna be a bunch of old people, you wouldn't like it." As she was driving she called me to tell me that she was going on a hike, so I asked her if our son was with her. She said no because he didn't get up early enough. So that's two different stories to two different people. She ends up parking at the guy's house and they go on a hike. After work I confronted her and asked her who she went hiking with and said the hiking group, so I told her I read her message and that she lied to me and our son. She said she did that because she knew I'd get mad. So in the course of more digging and querying, it turns out the guy was in the process of being divorced and him and that soon-to-be wife are living separately. And that the first hike wasn't with the wife at all. The other thing is that this guy is a colonel in the army. If he were seen hanging out or being alone with a spouse of another officer, civilian or worse, enlisted person, he would definitely be written up or counseled, which definitely is a career ender. Stories number 30. A male neighbor told me my standards in men are extremely high for what such a young man can offer. I am 29 years old and I feel it might be late for me to find a long-term partner and have kids. I was engaged and my fiancé died in a car crash a few years ago. It took me almost 3 years to consider trying again without feeling guilt. But I need some guidance with dating apps. I am also an active person, so I meet people in real life too, but have zero experience with dating apps, which I also tend to use for better success, especially since I have very little free time. I heard a lot of people complaining about dating apps. But I also heard many success stories. A little bit about me. I have a college degree in marketing and business, I am fit and go to gym regularly, take care of myself, I own a flat, published a few books of fiction for children, and I consider myself feminine. I mostly wear dresses, wear my hair long and use makeup, but usually just red lipstick, so not a lot. Now, my standards, are they high? I want a man who is financially stable, as I am financially stable, with a career, someone who has goals and is manly. Being manly is something else for everyone. For me it means knowing what he wants from life, is responsible, mature and can be in control of his own emotions and actions. I like guys who wear more formal clothes like button-down shirts, but of course this is not a deal breaker. Just present yourself on that dating app in decent clothes. I saw many guys wearing underwear in their profile pic. I use premium Tinder so I can see how many likes I am getting and who likes me. I have around 160 a day, living in a medium-sized city. I selected guys aged 31 to 38. So there are options, I just want to navigate through them efficiently. Let me add this, I am not an American. Why would you jump to that conclusion? I am from Slovakia and live in Bratislava, capital city. It has around 400,000 people, so a medium-sized city. Here it is not frequent for young people to be in college debts. You can have college education for free in many cases. I didn't pay for my studies. I even received money because I was a good student, which also brought me and other students with good grades free dorm. I had very poor parents who supported me mainly emotionally and with food from home. Like fresh eggs, from time to time some meat and vegetables from their garden. They could not afford to help me financially beside the costs of going to a coffee with a friend once a week. I worked in weekends to afford gym, to afford new clothes from time to time. Update, I have my first match. An airline pilot though, so probably he is not from here and will soon be gone. But I texted him, maybe a casual date will also do for a start. Just to go for a coffee. Let's see if he answers. Stories number 31. Aita for telling my ex-best friend I don't owe her anything, including a relationship with my son. When I, 22F, was pregnant with my son, 4, I found out his father, my then boyfriend and my, at the time, best friend were sleeping together. I broke up with him and ended my friendship with her. My ex was an inconsistent father and only really stepped up to appease some of his family when our son was newly turned 2. My ex-best friend was really enthusiastic about it and she called herself a bonus mommy whenever she could. She tried to make me forgive her a few times, but I ignored her and focused on my son. The only time that wasn't true is when my ex broke up with her and she wanted to still be in my son's life. I told her that I was glad her two-timing slutty ass wasn't going to be in my son's life anymore and she was never going to be his mommy in any kind of way. She didn't like me calling her that and she tried to say she had grown so much and I should be glad someone who loves me also loved my son like she did, and I told her she never loved me because if she didn't, she wouldn't have slept with the father of my child while I was pregnant and then sent her ex, who she cheated on, to me expecting me to lie about it so he wouldn't know she cheated. My ex and ex-best friend ended up getting back together, but then my ex died. She went crazy because ex's family pushed her out once they found out. She wasn't welcome for any of the funeral planning or anything surrounding the funeral because they wanted my son around and they knew that needed to include me. We're on okay terms, and they knew I wasn't about to spend time with her. She tried to argue with me the day before the funeral because nobody would tell her anything and she didn't think it was fair that I got to be around for that stuff while I hated him and she loved him but was shunned. I ignored her and carried on about my life. I guess at some point she talked to one of my ex's siblings and calmed down about that. But then she wanted to be in my son's life still. I blocked her number so she couldn't reach me and blocked her on my socials, but she was using fake accounts and somehow using random numbers to text me from. I ignored her pleas to see my son. I feel like my silence said everything. But after months of no reply from me, she decided to harass one of my friends, so I went to her directly and told her I don't owe her anything, which was something she said to me, that I owed her at least some contact with my son, including a relationship with my son. I told her she was never anything to him and I wanted her to fade away from our lives because there was nothing to keep her around now. She broke down and then her sister, who I forgot to remove from my list, messaged me and asked why I had to be such an ass when she's grieving the love of her life or whatever. Stories number 32. My GFS daughter lied. I spent a year in jail and now the truth is out and nothing happens to her. Trigger warning for child abuse, drug abuse, like the title says. This happened 20 years ago and still to this day messes with my head. I meet my ex at the time, me 30M, my ex 35F Sue. Sue was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. She has 2 kids, Stan 12M and Kim 14F. When I met Sue, her and her ex-husband had been separated for 2 years. All was good for the first couple of years with us. I was in full-time work, so was Sue, kids went to the local school and life was going great. Weekends the kids went to their dads, we went out on dates. We even got a dog, a little Staffy called Mush. Yeah, the lad named her 'cause she was soft and mushy. We were going strong for about 3 years, then Sue's ex died of a drug overdose, given to him by his boyfriend, and the kids were devastated. Stan just stopped talking and was closed off from everyone. Kim was crying all the time. Sue was sad about how the kids were. I was trying my hardest to keep everything moving forward. Stan was coming out of his shell slowly but getting better. Kim was becoming a topical teen, and started to drink and stayed out all night. Sue was trying her best to cope. I was trying my best to help, but everything I did was not good enough, or I was overstepping whatever I did with the kids. They started therapy for kids and we started to see improvement in Stan. He got into cooking and loved going on long walks with Mush. Kim just got worse with everyone who tried to help. It all went downhill for me, as Kim started to tell anyone who would listen that I was the reason why her mom and dad split up, and I was the reason her dad died. According to her, if I wasn't there, her mom and dad would still be together. Even after Sue told her the truth of why they split. The drugs and the men and woman he met up with. But Kim didn't care about what was said. Then one day me and Sue were sitting on the settee with our tea. Stan was out with his pals, Kim was out drinking with someone, turns out to be her dad's boyfriend. A knock on the door. As I opened it, there were 2 policemen, and as soon as they said, "Are you Mr. My name?" everything went blank and I thought, WTF is going on? Then Sue came to the door as they asked if they could talk to me at the station. That's when I found out that Kim and her friend had reported me for touching her over the past couple of years. And as I threw up in the police station interview room, I couldn't believe what was being said, and the things I was supposed to have done made me sick and cry. Now this is not the first time I've been in a police station, so yeah, I got a lawyer as soon as they said, "Do you want one?" Spent 2 months on remand waiting to go to court, and yes, I went not guilty. When I was talking to my lawyer, she was telling me the times I was supposed to have done what I was been done for. As soon as she said the dates, I laughed and said I can prove I didn't do it because I was at work. Had to clock in and out and had put your code in to get into the parking lot. In front of the guard. Worked 20-ish miles from home and Sue was all way home when I got home. Sue looked at me and said, "She's my daughter, I must believe her." I'm sorry, yep, she said it. I was fuming and said, "What?" And she said it again, "I have to believe her." Lucky for me, my work said that they would give all log-ins and log-outs if my lawyer wanted them, and she fucking said no. Even the police were gobsmacked about it. Court was a joke, my lawyer not the one who talked to me about everything and said no to my work. This one had no clue what was going on. And didn't do anything. Sue, now my ex, and Kim didn't even show up, and the copper who was there said that Kim's story had changed so many times, they now believe that I didn't do anything. But the CPS, Crown Prosecution Service, said that we must believe the victim and woman don't lie about this. A lot more was said, but that would take too long and I went blank after a bit. Only can just remember the judge saying 2 years and another 10 years on the list. So cause you only do half of the sentence and out you go on parole for a year. So I moved back to my hometown. My family didn't want anything to do with me, no friends, nothing but a one-bed flat. Parole was a joke, they just kept asking me about how I feel and do I want to touch young girls. Fuck off, a whole year of it and feeling like ending it all, not going out of my poxy flat because people might know. Was like that for 3 years. Then I get a phone call from the local police and asked if I would come to station, not to come now but would you please come. This is only 3 years out and I'm thinking what is happening. So I go and say who I am, show some ID and ask to follow them into a office, not a interview room. Well, there's been some new news on you. My head was spinning and I was shaking. And then he showed me a statement from Kim, where she actually told the truth, about how she made it all up and her friend, her dad's boyfriend, had told her what to say and was getting her drunk and giving her weed and fet. But she'd found God now, a need to clear her conscience. I must admit I laughed and laughed soon much I started coughing. And yes, I cried a lot. When I asked what does this mean? The copper said, well, that's it, done. No more list, nothing, just done. So what will happen to Kim? He looked at me like I'd asked him for money. Nothing will be done, they can't, because it might stop women from coming forward if anything happens to them. That was 20 years ago now, still in a one-bedroom flat, I'm LC with my family. I've made new friends and got back into Warhammer, and the best of all, I'm happy and I've a missus who I've been with for 5 years now. The only thing I miss from my old life is Mush the dog. I have no idea what Sue, Kim and Stan are doing today and I'm okay with that. Stories number 33. My wife, 27F, violated my 31M privacy and now blames me for my past. While I was at work, my wife took my personal USB sticks without my permission. She downloaded a special data recovery program and retrieved deleted photos of my ex. These were completely normal pictures, no nudes or anything inappropriate. For the past 2 days, she has been bringing it up and accusing me, saying that I had multiple relationships and looked happy in those pictures. I have made it clear to her that our marriage is the happiest relationship I have ever had and that she shouldn't compare herself to my past. She already knew that I had previous relationships before we got married. But now, she is blaming me for my past, even though I haven't done anything wrong. What bothers me the most is that she violated my privacy. This is not the first time something like this has happened. In the past, she has also checked my phone without my permission while I was in the shower, looking through my messages. I already told her back then that I found this completely unacceptable, and it even led to arguments between us. I have never cheated on my wife, not even once, nor have I ever even thought about it. Now, after what she did with my USB sticks, I confronted her again and told her that this was a serious violation of my privacy. But instead of understanding, she told me that she would do it again. How would you handle this situation? Because I feel deeply disrespected and don't know how to move forward. Stories number 34. Wibta, if I didn't let my roommate stay on the couch every weekend while she is subletting her room. I currently live in a share house with 2 other roommates. One of my roommates decided to work in another town for a few months for a university work placement, so she decided to sublet her room to save money while staying with her family. This arrangement was only intended to last until April, but my roommate has said she's now away until September as she decided to take on a full-time role following her placement. This wasn't a problem as the person subletting her room is happy to extend their stay, and they have been easy to live with. But now, my roommate has said she has a commitment back here every weekend and intends on staying on our couch in the lounge room every Friday and Saturday night. She didn't really ask if that would be okay, she just stated it to me as if she was assuming it would be fine. I personally don't want to have a 4th roommate using a shared space as a bedroom for 2 nights a week. She would also be using the bathroom 2 of us already share. It just doesn't feel right for her to get the best of both worlds and be able to save her rent money while still using the space when she needs it. The lounge room is also where the front door is, so it would feel like you're walking into and out of someone's bedroom every time you enter and leave the house. I'm not sure if I'm being unnecessarily pedantic about it and should just let her stay, or if this is valid and I should ask her to find somewhere else to stay. She has other friends here who might be more comfortable with this arrangement. Stories number 35. AIO for wanting to break up with my perfect boyfriend. My 26F boyfriend, 26M, is, by all accounts, an amazing boyfriend. My family loves him, I love him, he brings home sweet treats, he's caring, he's one of the funniest people I've ever met, and 99% of the time, we get along great. We've been together for almost 9 years, but that 1% of our relationship that causes issues feels significant. There are things that matter to me that doesn't matter to him that he tends to brush off, and when I try to discuss them, he often makes me feel like I'm crazy and overreacting about small things. For example, I recently received a work award, and the ceremony was fully paid for both of us, including flights and accommodation. It involved 3 back-to-back event days, and being punctual for work-related events is very important to me. I informed him 3 hours in advance of when we needed to leave, taking that time to prepare. In contrast, he would wait until just 5 minutes before we needed to depart to start getting ready, which resulted in us being late for every event. He would argue that I shouldn't mind waiting 5 minutes for him to put on his clothes and shoes, even though he had 3 hours to get ready. He tried to leave events early to watch basketball at the bar. He even tried to bring wings from a bar to the first corporate event, my company mixer dinner. Most recently, his mom is visiting this week. For several months leading up to this, I've been asking about her accommodations. He initially told me she would stay at a hotel and explicitly stated she wouldn't be staying with us. His family, his friends are always welcome to stay with us. It's important to me to know what the plans are, as I feel hosting takes a lot out of me, since I'm usually the one doing the hosting, and knowing the plan helps me mentally prepare, especially since I work from home in our small 400 square feet studio and I'm going into surgery early next week. There's a lot going on. Today, he informed me that his mom would be staying with us for Thursday and Friday night. This ongoing communication pattern is frustrating. I ask about accommodations, he says she won't stay with us. And then I'm notified last minute, few days prior, that she will be, often for an extended period and often with more people than just the initial guest. This has happened at least 4x in the past year with both his mom and brother. And I've brought up my frustrations each time. Now we're fighting because he feels it's unreasonable that I don't want his mom to stay with us, which I never said she couldn't, and I'm frustrated that he doesn't seem to understand that transparent communication and planning are important to me. And at the end of an unresolved fight, he pretends that nothing happened, like the problem doesn't never exist. Drives me crazy. I really want things between us to work out, but I'm tired of these patterns and I'm tired of feeling crazy, unless I am being crazy, hence why I'm asking a bunch of strangers for unbiased advice. Feels like after almost 9 years you'd know what your partner needs to feel loved and heard. Stories number 36. Got fed up and gave a born-again true believer a piece of my mind. I was driving a bus for people with disabilities and one of the passengers asked me what church I attended out of the blue one day. When I told them that I was an atheist, the first words out of their mouth were, of course, "Oh no, you're going to burn in hell." I have heard this numerous times, and every time I always wondered why someone would threaten me with something that I obviously do not believe in as some sort of prod to mend my ways and go get churched up. Well, I took it the wrong way, so I asked right away, why do you people always make threats about hell first thing when someone does not agree with your views on the Catholic cult? Rude, I know. And they took it the wrong way and asked me what I would have them say, so I told them that I thought that in religion it was the mission of true believers to convert the heathens, so instead of threatening me with a fairy tale, why not start a conversation and ask me why I don't believe instead? They claimed up and refused to say another word to me. Stories number 37. Left driver of jacked up truck stranded when we were pumping gas. I was pumping gas, left it running and then started cleaning the bugs from my windshield. It was that time of year. This truck had pulled up behind me, and the driver was an impatient asshole. He got out of his truck and walked up to the fuel handle. Gas was still running. He shut it off, pulled nozzle out of my car and put it back in the pump station and told me he was helping me get out of the way. I was on the passenger side of car. I was startled and starting to walk back around to confront the guy. My son, 17 years old at the time, had been in the store and was walking back to the car when he saw what was going on. He walked over, said, "Dad, just leave, okay?" So I walked back around, got in and started driving away, feeling like I may have avoided an ass whipping, but as soon as we drove away he reached into his pocket and pulled out a keychain. The guy had left his door open, and while he was focused on me, my son had reached in and grabbed the keychain out of the ignition to his truck. As we pulled out of the parking lot we saw him running towards us, rolling on the floor laughing. We drove about a half mile from there, and I pulled over into a parking lot, and walked over to the curbed main street, and tossed his keys into storm drain. Must have been 8 or 9 keys on there, so I'm sure he had fun replacing all that. Stories number 38. Aita for being angry after discovering my girlfriend's past catfishing scheme. My girlfriend, 24F, and I, 24M, have been together for 2 years. We first met at a friend's graduation party when we were 17, had a brief conversation and didn't even exchange names or contact information. She later admitted that she was interested in me but was too shy to ask for my number. We met again at a gathering when we were 20, became friends, and started dating at 22. Recently, my girlfriend confessed that after our initial meeting at 17, she told one of her friends, 16F at the time, is also her cousin who is a year younger than us and best friends with GF to this day, about me, as she had regretted not showing more interest in me at the grad party. She described my appearance to her friend, who then searched through mutual friends' followers and somehow found my profile. Her friend proposed creating a fake account to gather more information about me, specifically to figure out if I was single, if I even lived in the same city, as they hadn't seen me around before, on top of other small details they were curious about, school, friends, family, etc. My girlfriend agreed to this plan. They used the fake account to message me, which led to a brief talking stage lasting about a week. I truly was interested at first but lost interest due to not wanting to deal with long distance. The account insisted on staying friends, so I agreed. But our communication basically came to an end at that point as we were barely texting each other. However, both her and her friend were still stalking my account and trying to get my attention through targeted posts and occasional DMs. Eventually, my girlfriend realized the whole thing was dumb and deleted the account about a year later. So after hearing this, I felt a mix of things. Part of me was flattered that she was interested in me at 17. I also get that they were both young, and I appreciate her being honest now, but knowing she went to those lengths definitely broke my trust a bit. When she talked about it, she basically played everything off as a joke, but it honestly felt embarrassing for me knowing I showed interest in a completely fake person. After realizing I didn't find it amusing, she admitted she was immature and selfish to joke about it without considering how it would make me feel, and has apologized. I'm struggling with how to respond or feel about this and unsure if it's something to break up over. Also, my girlfriend's cousin best friend is someone who I enjoyed spending time with as we make plans with her and her boyfriend very often. I even see her boyfriend as one of my closest friends now, but I just can't see her the same way after this. Knowing the two of them knew about everything that happened back then and somehow kept it such a well-hidden secret makes me a bit embarrassed and uneasy, I guess. So, Aita and making this a big deal. Stories number 39. I have actually never seen an ugly man in a romantic relationship. I swear to God, all these supposedly ugly men in relationships are just regular dudes. Yes, some of them are overweight or don't have a 10-10 handsome face, but have other good physical qualities, so that doesn't make them ugly. It makes them normal. The bottom few percent, the real ugly men I've met, no matter how smart, nice, well-dressed and groomed, have always been single. If you see a lot of ugly men in relationships every day, especially if you see them with attractive women, then your perception is off, simple as that. Because if you look at the bell curve, ugly is rare. It's literally impossible to see that many ugly people every day. Maybe my extreme experience is due to the fact that I'm in Germany, where looks play a much bigger role than in most other countries, but the narrative of ugly guys having relationships all the time is just as widespread. Edit. Thanks to all the commenters who say 90% of men I see with partners are ugly for proving my point. Stories number 40. Aita for being upset that my husband gave my food to his friend. I, 23F, and my husband Jeff, 25M, have been together for 7 years. We've recently got married about 10 months ago. With that, I also got a promotion at my job and I work longer hours. He has a friend, Sarah, 25F. I'm not close to her, I don't talk to her, but I will greet her and be civil if I have to. My husband knows her as they were in the same training for their job. They work in 2 different departments though. So to the problem, me and my husband had gotten off of work a bit earlier, so I decided to make a nice meal for both of us as we haven't been able to have a lot of time together, so I wanted to have a nice romantic dinner in our dining room. Fast forward some hours, after I finished cooking I only made enough portions for me, him and a bit for myself for my lunch tomorrow at work, so I let him know about my lunch I had in the fridge and that it isn't leftovers. Anyways, we're sitting down enjoying our meal and talking. That's when somebody walks in. Obviously I'm thinking somebody just snuck into our house or something because I never gave anybody a key. All I knew is that my husband and myself have a key. To my surprise, Sarah came walking in as she greeted my husband. I had to greet her first and she finally looked at me and greeted me. I looked at my husband and said, I didn't know we had company. He just shrugged it off and said, I decided to invite her over to hang out. I'm blindsided because I wanted this night to be just for us since we've been so busy. Sarah sits down and has the nerve to ask, where is my plate? I looked at her, I reminded her that I wasn't aware that she was coming over, so I didn't make enough and I apologized. She started calling me rude and inconsiderate, but I kept letting her know that I wasn't aware and I could Uber Eats or something if she wanted or fix her up a sandwich. She looked at my husband and asked why she didn't have a plate. I kid you not, my husband gets up, goes over to the fridge, takes my temporary lunch bowl out the fridge and reheats it and gives it to her. I immediately tried to take it but he moved it and I said, that's my lunch for tomorrow, and he replied to me, you could make yourself something else. To be fair, I was pissed. He gave the plate to her and she just started eating it and thanked him. Obviously I'm mad at this point and I was going on about how that was my lunch for tomorrow while he ignored him. Sarah kept calling me bitter and childish, saying it wasn't serious. I soon had enough and just stormed upstairs and never came back downstairs. My husband ended up coming upstairs very late at night and just getting into bed without even giving me a kiss. I wake up easily but I was still halfway asleep. I just want to know if I was being selfish and made a big deal out of him giving her the food. Edit. I'm getting comments saying I'm fake and AI. I do apologize for any mistakes in here. I do typically mess up with my words when I type fast and I apologize for that, but please stop being mean about it. I never post it on here though, are PPL usually this mean? Edit 2, I plan on talking to him tonight when he gets home. He's working later tonight, so I'm gonna try to keep myself up and I'm gonna ask him if anything is going on with him and Sarah. Update, my husband gave his friend my lunch. This isn't gonna be a long update at all. I talked to my husband after he got home today and long story short, they have feelings for one another. He denied cheating, but I feel like there was at least emotional cheating. I don't know what to do as I've been with him since I was 16 and he was my first everything. I can't even imagine a life without him. I'm currently at my mom's house. I came over here after all the chaos. He's been blowing up my phone with text and calls. First he was apologetic, to it was, she means nothing and now I'm insecure woman he claims. He tells me he still loves me, but if I'm with you then I want to be the only one you love. Lots of you also pointed out that he was disrespectful, which he was, and I can't stand for that either. I checked the Ring camera and her car is currently in our driveway. Anyways, I feel like complete shit. Me and him mostly have mutual friends since I didn't have much friends in high school, just college, which is where I met him. We were in the same friend group. I've been crying and I'll admit embarrassingly I've thrown up about twice. My mom has been super supportive and tonight she's letting me forget with ice cream and reaching Love Island. But she said it'll be temporary as me and her need to have discussions on what will be with me and my husband going forward. That's it though, thanks for all the advice I got and completely things get better. Again, I'm sorry if any of this is hard to understand as my hands are very shaky. Update 2, my husband gave my lunch to his friend. Before I start on the update I want to explain some things I saw in the comments. A lot of people were confused by me saying I got with him at 16 and I do apologize for not talking about that more because I forgot that might be confusing for some people. I started attending kindergarten at 4 in September, I turned 5 that January. In 8th grade I was put in some honor classes which was high school credited. I went to high school, did summer classes plus some credit from 8th grade and ended up graduating early at 16. I started college after that summer break and that's when I met my husband. Hope that explains the timeline more. Secondly, a lot of people were saying I was too calm about it. I want to also apologize for not adding much dialogue of what was discussed during the situation, and I thought that me saying, I kept trying to take the plate and I was angry, was enough for some people to get the picture. I didn't want to add too much dialogue because I felt it would just make the whole post too long, as I assumed that people wouldn't have the attention span to read that, but I was most definitely angry. The reason I offered her Uber Eats or to make a quick sandwich is because yes, I wasn't aware she was coming, but my husband did invite her and she was a guest, so I didn't just want to be rude. Lastly, people with the grammar, AI, and spelling comments coming at me. I don't know if the AI thing is a compliment or insult, as AI is smart and the insult is that AI doesn't always add up. I don't know, this is my that Reddit post. Next, the grammar and spelling. My husband just told me that he has feelings for one of his friends and prioritized her over me. The last thing I'm worried about is grammar and spelling, but thanks for being so concerned about it, word girl. On to the update. This whole thing has been going so fast. I mean, how could this all happen in literally 6 days? So that night of the whole blowing up phone and Sarah's car being in the driveway, I stayed at my mom's house and I'm super grateful for her because she was an amazing support. Jeff didn't text me again that night, but Sarah's car did leave later that night. I've been trying to convince myself that he was just upset about me leaving and she was there to make him feel better, but obviously that's not what it is. The next day, Jeff's number had called me and I picked up, but it was Sarah who was on the other line. She kept telling me how I was overreacting and trying to reassure me that Jeff was a good man. She said it was selfish how I would let her starve just to keep a lunch for the next day and Jeff was just being kind. I told her about how Jeff told me that they had feelings and she confirmed it like it was nothing. She only said something along the lines of, "Why wouldn't I? He's a good man." She then told me if I was really gonna let that situation ruin our marriage, I wish this was fake, because why the hell are you so desperate for a married man? I ended up just asking her why she had Jeff phone and she told me that was she there to comfort him. She had came back the next day after I saw her car on the Ring camera. I just ended up hanging up on her. I'll be honest, this is where I may be a big dummy. I ended up staying at my mom's house an extra day. I just needed one more day before I had to confront everything. Not once did Jeff check on me and it really did hurt, because how could he just change like we didn't spend 7 years together? The next day on Monday I did go over there. I left my mom's house around 9 a.m. and went back home, and that's when to my surprise I caught them. Also PS, I didn't see her car in the driveway so I didn't think she was still there, but when I found them, they were asleep in our bed, halfway naked. In our bed, literally under where our wedding photo hung up, and admittedly that was my breaking point. I raged and I ended up screaming, which woke up both of them, and Sarah wasn't even on shit. She acts all big and bad during other moments, but this time she just hurried and left like a pussy. I turned to my husband, and what hurt the most is that he didn't seem to care. He didn't try to even defend himself, just stood there staring at me. I started yelling at him. I yelled that I was gonna leave him and that I was packing my stuff, but he did literally nothings. That's when he turned around and got something off the counter and he gave it to me. He had the nerve to serve me divorce papers, so obviously he's been thinking about doing this, but I don't get why. Like, was this whole lunch thing, him calling her over after I left and then finding them in the bed together, just a sick joke to get a laugh out? They've been friends for 3 years, as that's how long it's been since his training. I don't know for sure how long the affair was, but if I had to guess I would say some years. I just stared at him for a moment because, not gonna lie, I was gagged. He then just told me one thing: pack your shit and leave then. I stood there for a moment just staring at the divorce papers. Soon I regained my composure and I signed them. So we're getting a divorce. A bit bummed I didn't get the chance to initiate it, but at least I don't have to worry about it anymore. I had questions to ask him, but honestly after that it was just silence until I left again. I wanted to ask how long he had the divorce papers and why was he even prepared with divorce papers. I wanted to ask why play in my face and do all that just to divorce me. Is this like a taboo situation where him and Sarah thought it was so fun and sneaky to plan this behind my back or something? I'm not worried about the divorce. Luckily we have no kids, we don't have a joint bank account, so I'm good on money as I have my job and my grandparents add $200 every month. Not that I can move into a new place immediately, but I have money. For the meantime, I'm just gonna go to my grandparents' house as it's pretty big and they could use the help anyways. I'm definitely still sad but also very angry about the whole situation because it was just so stupid. Like, genuinely, how can villains like this exist? What did they even gain out of doing all that? I do want to thank you everybody who messaged me kind things and also commented kind things. It's super appreciated and it's definitely something that's making me feel better. This situation didn't turn out the way I'd thought it'd be, but at least me and him will be getting a divorce. This update was pretty hard to write as I'm just experiencing yesterday all over again in my head and the whole thing just pisses me off. I would say that I'll update if there's more, but hopefully there's not, as I want this chapter to be closed. I know I seemed like such a doormat in my other post, but I think seeing them in my bed, him with no reaction, and being served divorce papers was obviously what I needed to really not want this relationship to work out. I know I say this every single post, but again, please refrain on hating. I really can't handle it right now, so that'd be appreciated. Stories number 41. Aita for treating my cousin's stepdaughter differently. I was raised in a family-oriented household, so I grew up close with my cousins and other extended family members my age. After the following years, we grew, had our own lives, but the bond was still the same, if not stronger. Some of these members settled down and had a family of their own. While I am close with their kids, having my own, I feel, is not for me. I don't think that I want to have that responsibility, or at least not yet. Since I am single, have a low-maintenance lifestyle, child-free, have a stable job, some passive income and extra money, I try my best to share my blessings to everyone, including to the younger generations of the family. Fast forward to last weekend, we celebrated my grandmother's birthday, so it was kinda a big deal and nearly every family member's gonna be there. With that in mind, I've prepped some goodie bags filled with chocolate, candy, and some cookies. I also baked some extra just in case more kids attended the reunion than planned, family friends, as a separate set of goodie bags, which includes 3 assorted cookies. After the day ended, I handed every kid a goodie bag to take back home. Everyone was happy and appreciative with the gift, so I thought. My cousin's stepdaughter, 10, approached me complaining that why is her goodie bag smaller than her younger sister. Luckily there were 2 extra cookie bags, but she complained that she wanted chocolate and candies too like everyone. But I said if she had more cookies than anyone with 12, and if she wants she can trade some of her cookies with her sister or ask to share. She said she didn't want to and said since she's older she deserves the extra cookies as well as the other goodies. I said and couldn't do that, and I promised her that I would give her some next time. She started crying and my cousin, her stepdad, came to try to quell her. I explained the situation and apologized. He understood and took the kid away as well as the extra packs of cookies I planned to give her. That evening, my cousin's wife called me and told me that I was dick and accused me of mistreating her daughter just because we aren't blood related. And said that wasn't the only time I treated her differently. Called me some profanities, cursed me and hanged up before I can speak for myself. Admittedly, I do treat her differently. Initially, yes, it was because we weren't related, but after a few years it was because of her attitude and personality. She's super spoiled, entitled, rowdy, nosy, and just plainly misbehaved. But what happened on Grandma's birthday was an honest mistake. With her personality, had I known my cousin planned to bring her, which he normally doesn't do, I would have given exactly like her sisters and the other kids to avoid the drama. So am I the asshole? Stories number 42. I'm actively avoiding my company from saving money. I'm severely underpaid and because of my autism the interviewing process is hell for me, so I haven't had the chance to switch jobs. I asked for a raise, they agreed that I was underpaid, they promised me certain amount but failed to comply. Long story short, I accepted, but an awesome thing about my autism is that I'm very meticulous with numbers and used to save them up a bunch of money yearly by discovering mistakes, finding better providers, checking invoices, etc. Just last month I saved them more money than what they missed to comply for the raise. So fuck them, now I'm actively choosing the most expensive items for purchases. Need a pen drive? Let's buy the €100 one instead of the cheap one that does exactly the same. Need a new computer? Sure, let's buy the fancy one with no discounts. You traveling? Yeah, just use the roaming instead of buying a SIM card there. Morally, I feel bad doing it, but I also can't seem to stop. I am actively looking for another job, wish me luck. Stories number 43. My son's school falsely called CPS on me, they used his medical condition to allege abuse. Do I really need a lawyer for this? My 5-year-old son has an eye condition that causes his glands to get blocked sometimes. Styes will form and cause his eye to become swollen and red until they drain. He has also had a tube since he was 2 months old, he finally got it out almost a month ago. When it was first out, the hole did leak, so it did cause some uncomfortableness, and we were not allowed to give him a bath. Last Monday I got a call from CPS telling me a report had been made against me, so I brought my son up there. They let me know someone working with my son in his special education school alleged that in his prior Thursday session, his eye was reddish, purplish, and swollen, that he was crying, screaming in pain, holding his stomach, but wouldn't let anyone go near it. His hair was dirty and matted. I immediately showed the worker the medical documentation of his eye condition and documentation of the tube being taken out as well as the clinical notes saying we could not give him a bath, and told her his hair was not matted or dirty. She looked at him and said he looked fine. I also sent the documentation to the district, and let them know I was certain this was retaliation as they knew of his medical conditions, and 3 weeks ago I had to get an advocate involved as well as got into a disagreement with the behaviorist. I had a meeting with the special education director where he admitted that the report was made in error, and said that all he could do was apologize and say he was sorry. He is maintaining that the person that reported us did not know of his medical conditions, but I just do not believe that. The superintendent and assistant superintendent were ignoring me until I let them know I was going to file an OCR complaint for discrimination using retaliation, and now they've emailed saying the district is doing an investigation into it. The CPS woman said she had to come do a walk-through of my house. She was supposed to come on Thursday, but that morning texted and said she forgot she was off that day and Friday and would come on Saturday. Well, Saturday came and went and she did not show up. It is now Monday afternoon, and I've literally not heard a thing from her. I've not heard from her at all except for when I brought my son up there, and her asking to reschedule. Everyone is saying I need an attorney anytime CPS is involved. Do I really need an attorney? This CPS lady just straight up disappeared and ghosted me. Is this really worth getting an attorney over? Stories number 44. Aita for breaking up with my boyfriend after he said only lazy women stay at home after having a baby and don't work. So my boyfriend and I were talking about the future, and somehow the topic of stay-at-home moms came up. Out of nowhere, he went on a rant about how only lazy women stay home with their kids instead of going back to work. He said things like, it's not that hard to do both, and that moms who stay home are just making excuses and refusing to contribute. I pushed back, trying to explain that raising a child is literally a full-time job and that a lot of families decide to have one parent stay home because it makes sense for them. But he cut me off and said, that's not how it works, you're just lazy. At that point, I realized we had completely different values, and I didn't want a future with someone who thought like that. So I told him I couldn't be with someone who had such little respect for stay-at-home moms, and I broke up with him. He got super defensive, saying I was overreacting and twisting his words, but I wasn't about to argue over something so fundamental. Now, some of our mutual friends are saying I was too harsh and should have just let it go since it's just his opinion. But to me, this wasn't just an opinion, it was a major red flag about how he views women, relationships, and parenting. Aita for ending things over this. Edit, stop saying my post is AI y'all. I have thought for a long time before posting here. Also, thank you so much for the nice comments. It makes me feel a lot better about the situation. Stories number 45. Aita for asking my neighbor to pay for damages his trampoline caused. Today around 5 p.m. I got text messages from our great next door neighbor who said that a trampoline came flying in a storm and damaged our fence barn behind our house. I accessed our security system via my cell phone and found out the trampoline came from the neighbors across the street, NAS. We are not friends with NAS but up to this point have had no problems with them. I inspected the damage, our fence was destroyed, almost knocked flat. The trampoline hit the barn so hard it dented the metal walls and broke 2 panels on the garage door. There were all sorts of other minor scraping along the sides of the barn. As I was surveilling the damage, the husband NAS came walking up the driveway. He did not appear concerned and more annoyed than anything. I held our broken gate open for him to enter the yard and look at the damage with me. After reviewing the damage together, he asked me what I wanted to do about the damages. I was still a little shocked and said, well, your trampoline caused the damages, you are responsible. I'm guessing the damages between $5,000 to $10,000. The fence was decorative aluminum to appear like wrought iron, and the damaged section was 4 to 5 panels and cost us approximately $4,000 3 years ago. The garage door was insulated, was around $3,000 2 years ago. I have no idea how to estimate the cost to repair the dented, scraped, and damaged metal walls of the barn, which again is only 2 years old. NAS said, well, it's all damage to your property, you should put all the damage through your insurance. I was again shocked and incredulous at the audacity of this person. I told him, I'm an attorney, I actually am in my state. Your failure to secure the trampoline caused it to fly into my yard and destroy my fence and damage my barn. I'm not putting a claim on my insurance, I don't want my premiums to increase. I have great insurance and an umbrella due to the ponds on the property, and have a separate rider for the barn just to be safe. Due to my profession, I made sure I have great insurance. I told him I can either get quotes to fix the damage that you can pay, or you can make a claim against your homeowner's insurance. He said, well, I'm not paying cash and not making a claim against my insurance. This was an act of God. I said to him, okay, I'm sorry you see it that way. My firm sues around 200 cases per week, not a brag, a fact. Suing one more next week will not be difficult. That is when NAS finally agreed to put his homeowners on notice and exchanged his phone number with me. Several colleges and my mentor said he probably never put the trampoline on his insurance, and an unreported trampoline can lead to cancellation of NAS homeowners insurance. Aita for insisting NAS pay for the damage caused by their trampoline flying onto my property, one way or the other. Stories number 46. Someone cut me off, so instead of giving them the finger, I gave them a flat tire. I was driving my kid to a birthday party at a play center when somebody wanted to get past me from the merge lane, so they took the ditch and their tires threw gravel on my windshield. They weaved dangerously through traffic, and knowing my kid is a few years from getting a driver's license, I said, they look like a dangerous driver. I'm going to keep my distance and not engage with them. Despite their reckless driving, we ended up being right behind them as we pulled into the parking lot, and there were 2 open parking spots. 3 18 to 20 dudes got out of their BMW and walked past me as I pulled into the spot, and they didn't appear to recognize I was the driver. They just cut me off 5 minutes ago. When I came back to my car after dropping my kid off, their car was still there, so looked for cameras, and I took a valve cap off the tire and started to press the stem to drain the air out. It actually takes a long time to drain a tire, and I was worried they would return to their car, so I took a small pebble and put it inside the cap and threaded it on enough to press the stem but not seal the air in and drive away. It didn't cause any damage and no one got hurt, but I drove away, feeling I had inconvenienced them for their shitty driving. Stories number 47. To fool by trying to hold my breath underwater like a pro and passing out in the bath while my kid watched. My wife was working last weekend, so with 2 kids, it was a busy end of the week for me. Today, I finally had a moment of peace and decided to take a bath. My 2-year-old was napping, and my 8-year-old was busy playing Minecraft, so I thought, perfect, some alone time. Of course, alone time as a parent is a myth, and my oldest kept popping in and out to ask me random questions like, why are you having a bath? Or, why are you lying in the bath? At some point, I got bored and decided to see how long I could hold my breath underwater. I usually manage around 100 seconds, and I used to be able to do over 2 minutes. I asked my son if he could time me because Dad is going to hold his breath for 2 minutes like he used to. To be smart, I hyperventilated a bit beforehand, like freedivers do. I took some deep, rapid breaths to oxygenate myself, heard my son laughing at me, then went under. The next thing I knew, I was being yanked out of the water by my 8-year-old, coughing and gasping like a fish on land. Turns out, I had passed out. My son later told me that around 90 seconds in, he started poking me because he didn't want me to make it. When I didn't respond, he realized something was wrong and actually dragged me up and out. After Googling what happened, I learned that hyperventilating before holding your breath is actually really dangerous because it tricks your body into not realizing it needs air. So instead of feeling the urge to breathe, I just blacked out. My son spent the rest of the day reenacting the scene for fun, while my wife, who thinks I'm an idiot for doing that, insisted I should visit the GP tomorrow to make sure there's no underlying reason I passed out. But honestly, I'm just lucky my kid was there. Otherwise, I might have become the dumbest Darwin Award nominee of the year. TLDR, tried to hold my breath underwater in the bath like I used to, hyperventilated beforehand to boost my time, and blacked out. My 8-year-old, who was timing me, initially poked me to make sure I didn't win, then realized I was actually unconscious and pulled me out. Spent the rest of the day getting roasted by my kid and my wife, who now insists I see a doctor. Learned the hard way that hyperventilating before breath holding is very dumb. Stories number 48. I can't even kill myself because I have to stay alive to take care of my wife. What seems like every night that I come home from work, I sit in bed crying and think to myself, I can't even kill myself because I have to take care of her. I love her with everything I have. She is in a perpetual good mood from a brain surgery. She had to remove a tumor from her left frontal lobe and she also has Huntington's disease. How fucking selfish am I that this is her life, but I want to end mine. I know I can't. No one will know what temperature she likes the room. What shows she would want to watch. That she hates pants that are tight around her ankles, and that she wants praise for doing a good job brushing her own hair. My manager and at least 8 others hate me because the owner loves me. Small restaurant. I'm the most conscientious person I've ever met and my sobriety from alcohol keeps me super ethical. Even if I annoy you, I'm good for business, so wouldn't you just appreciate me and use it to your advantage? I'm not a bad person. I've never had friends through fault of my own, but I'm excellent with people. You would never know I feel like this on the inside. You really don't have to comment, respond, or whatever. I'll be fine. I just thought that when I woke up I'd feel better. I just needed to cry it out again and actually tell somebody, even if it is into the void. She'll be down from her nap soon, so I have to look happy again. Thanks for letting me type this out. I don't post often, and I don't know how to do this. I'm sorry. Okay, so she's awake now, and I cannot read a single thing without crying. I had to tell her that I posted something, a lightened summary, on a sub that would let me say anything. That people are being so loving and supportive that I'm going to be emotional all day and not to worry if she sees me crying. Okay baby, she says. She's so fucking pure now. 25 years ago she watched her father die from HD. She tells me she's happy I have you guys to talk to, lol. She also said to say thank you. I myself really thank you too. I have never admitted any of this to anyone. I have never said those words before and had been holding everything in, and now it came bursting out. I have never heard of caretaker fatigue or situational depression. I think I really do need therapy, but I was scared to say too much. Can I really say what I said here? To answer a few questions, I'm in New York. My wife has Medicare disability, and my insurance sucks. I started feeling this way about 4 months ago. About 2 months ago, I reached out to her insurance company to ask if they offer any therapy to the spouse so I can get help to better take care of her. That led nowhere. I've never heard words of support like this, and I'm trying to take it in. It's hard, I don't know why. I think I needed this. I appreciate you all. Stories number 49. Wibta if I told my fiancé and my mill I will no longer buy groceries for my baby. So backstory before I get into it, I, 23F, gave birth to my son last summer. My MIL was very involved in my pregnancy, which I was very thankful for. When I gave birth that support turned into possessive behavior. I could list off scenarios, but this post would be a book lol. I have addressed this several times with my fiancé, 24M. He will tell me he will talk with his mom but nothing seems to change. My relationship was great with my MIL up until she kinda started to play mommy with my son. I've set boundaries and somehow they apply to everyone but her. Again it's an ongoing battle and my fiancé isn't supportive or just brushed it off. So currently my baby is starting solids now and I will prep food and buy snacks that I know he likes, but my MIL will buy whatever snacks she has and will feed him that. My MIL is not my babysitter, we have a family member watching him at my MIL's house. She will buy groceries for my son and has introduced foods etc. I am at a point where I don't want to buy him groceries as the food I pack is just left untouched or it starts to go bad in my fridge. I do have farm animals that eat said food. I have told my babysitter to feed what I pack, but then she tell me she was told there was food for him my MIL bought. I also want to start taking my son to my mom's as I know my MIL won't have any control over him, but the commute is 30 minutes one way and I would have to wake him up at 5 a.m. I'm not sure what to do. Edit, I may have not specified this, but I will still buy my son his groceries for our home. I would have my MIL use buy food instead of me packing his meals. Stories number 50. Aita for favoring my daughter over my stepson. I truly think I'm not in the wrong here, but since so many people think I am, I came here to look for some neutral perspective. So I, 34F, had my daughter Olivia, 17F, with my then boyfriend Martin, 34M, when we were 17. We had finished high school just a couple of months prior, and we decided to keep the baby against our family's wishes. We worked and studied a career at the same time, and we managed to raise Olivia, and she never lacked of food, but she lacked many times things she would see her classmates get. Martin and I eventually broke up, but we remained friends and have maintained a good co-parenting relationship ever since. Now, I eventually graduated, got a great job, was able to buy my own house and married my husband Caleb, 38M, 4 years ago after dating for 3. He was divorced and he has a son, Ian, 15M, from his previous marriage, with whom I don't have a good relationship. Not because we fight or something, but because we rarely see each other. He spends only some days of the week, and I work many hours. The rest of the time, I use it mostly to spend it with my daughter, my husband, or my friends. From the beginning, I made clear that Olivia would always be my first priority, no matter what. And he said the same about his kid. Olivia and my husband have a cordial relationship, but they never got too close. My daughter is pretty reserved, so it's only normal for them to not be so close. Now, when Olivia was 12, Martin and I decided to save money on an account to buy our daughter an apartment. It's almost impossible to own an apartment or a house these days at a young age, especially in Latin America, so we wanted her to have a secured place since we had the money. But since she was always someone stubborn and proud, we had this idea of buying a pretty big apartment, but that was completely destroyed, that needed a huge renovation and was completely empty, and the apartment is in close city. We bought it when she was 14, and we told her the apartment was on her name and she could get access to it once she started university, but we told her she would have to work to pay for the renovation and the furniture. She was more than happy with this, and started to work shortly after. She gathered a lot of money, and I arranged for the renovations while she was on her last year of secondary school. She also bought the furniture, and the apartment ended up really nice. She left at the beginning of the month to start university. Now, my husband really liked this. He said he wanted to do the same with his son, but he wanted to buy him an apartment in good conditions and all the furniture. He said he had already spoken to his ex and her husband, and they had agreed on contribute. Caleb asked me to put some money on their savings, but I told him I couldn't, and I gave him my reasons. Basically, my mom is sick with cancer, and I'm the only one of my siblings who can actually afford to pay her treatments. Not only that, Martin and I have decided to pay for all of Olivia's services and give her money every month. We want her to not only focus mainly on university, but to be able to make friends and adapt to her new life in a big city. Now, Caleb was pretty angry with me. He told me it was not fair for me to not contribute, since I'm Ian's stepmother and need to step up, and perhaps I should let Olivia get a job since she's about to turn 18. I got pretty angry at this and told him only Martin and I will decide how to raise Olivia and what to give her, not him, and I reminded him that I always told him that my daughter was first. I told him he was delusional if he thought I would let my daughter alone when she's not even a legal adult just so he can buy an apartment to his son. No matter what, she will always be first and that's how things are supposed to be, and I offered to help him in the future to buy the furniture or to pay the bills, but that at the time, I can't help him. He told me I was favoring my daughter, then left and hasn't spoken to me ever since, and I refuse to apologize when I believe I haven't done anything wrong. Now, I know my husband doesn't make much money. I make much more than him, and I know that his ex and her husband doesn't make much either, so if I don't help, they will never be able to buy an apartment for him. But right now, I have no other choice. Some of my friends told me that once I get married with a person with a kid, I'm also taking responsibility for the kid, and I should give him the same treatment I give to my daughter. Honestly, I think this is bullshit. Ian has a mother and has a father, and I don't think he ever expected me to be a parental figure to him and to treat him with the same love than my daughter. I think that kind of things can't be forced, it should happen naturally, and since we've barely spent any time together, that hasn't happened. Plus, I just could never love my stepson as much as I love my daughter. I could never treat him equally, my girl will just always come first in anything. I care for my stepson, but he just isn't my kid. Also, I feel like it's pretty unfair because he doesn't treat my daughter as he treats his son. And I don't expect him to. Anyway, Aita. Stories number 51. I let my young son run around naked in front of his girl cousins, Aita. This past weekend my family went away to a cabin in the mountains with my husband's side of the family. Besides my 2-year-old son, there were 3 girls all under age 4. I have been slowly introducing potty training to my son, and with the weather warming up, he loves to free ball it outside and go pee. On the Friday we got there he asked to take his diaper off when we're outside so he could pee. After I took his diaper off, one of the little girl's dads came up to me and was clearly uncomfortable by my son's nudity around his daughter, which is my son's cousin. He said something jokingly about, "I don't know if my daughter should be seeing this." I laughed and said it's basically her brother. The dad said something again about it being weird, so I went ahead and put a diaper on my son. The next day I was changing my son's diaper. The house was loud and chaotic with all the family around, so I didn't think twice when I laid my son down in the corner of the living room to quickly change him. One of the little girls was running to where we were when she was immediately chased after by her mom and grandmother. They scooped her up and were telling her she can't look. It made me feel super uncomfortable, and after that I made sure we were alone whenever I was changing him. Comments were made throughout the weekend that felt a little pointed. Aita for assuming no one would have an issue with a naked toddler around opposite genders. Edit, the issue was never about him peeing outside or anything. This is my in-laws' cabin that they own. They do not have a problem with him peeing outside at all. The issue that a couple people had was him being nude in view of his cousins that are girls. I gave more details to explain it was situational and not him being naked 24/7. I would not allow my child to pee in public places or anywhere like that. We're potty training in a place he feels like is a second home. Let it go, people. I want to know if you would have a problem with young cousins of opposed sex seeing each other nude. Stories number 52, Aita. Girlfriend will not let me take overnight guys trip. I've been dating this girl for 6 years. 23M, 24F, 3 of my buddies are taking a trip to St. Louis Friday night, and coming back Saturday afternoon. I wanted to go because these are my best friends and they are moving back to Oregon pretty soon. My girlfriend is telling me one of her boundaries is that I don't take overnight trips with friends. I explained to her it makes no sense for me to drive 5 hours just to turn around and come back the same day. She also told me I shouldn't have any friends that are single anyways. Aita for insisting on going. Edit, I can't believe how many of the same comments I'm getting here. I've been feeling guilty about my decision, but I guess I should not be. Stories number 53. Aita, because I didn't buy a joint birth present for our mother, in the name of me, all my siblings and our father. I have 4 brothers, 3 older, 31, 28, 26, and 1 younger, 21. I, 24, am the only daughter in the family. I wasn't raised much differently than the boys. We all had to do the same things around the house, and we all learned how to cook, do laundry, and change car tires. Of course, we all have different interests and strengths, but of course, that also applies to the boys among themselves. One thing that's somehow a woman's job in our house, however, is organizing parties, whether it's Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, or graduations. That includes buying presents. I think that's more because my mother simply loves it. You can see the anticipation in her face when she buys presents, how excited she is when e.g. the birthday child opens them. She loves decorating the house, inviting people over, cooking special meals, baking cakes. For my mother, this is more of a hobby than a duty. My father leaves this joy to her, doesn't interfere, but always has our mother show him the presents beforehand because he wants to know what's inside. Well, my mother has been doing all of this for over 3 decades now, and until I was 13, she basically got nothing in return. If my father remembered to make a cake with batter mix on her birthday, or to buy a bouquet of flowers at a gas station, that was quite a lot. From us children, when we were little, she naturally received typical childhood gifts, something hand-painted or crafted, something from the heart, but of course not materially valuable. But our father received similar gifts from us as children. So that was fair. When I was 13, my older brothers and my father decided I was old enough, and that as a daughter, it was my job to make sure our mother got something back after so many years without happy birthdays. I decorate the house at night while she's sleeping, bake cakes, and most importantly, I buy a big, expensive gift, divide the price by 6, and then my brothers and my father give me the money. Basically, I like doing it. It's about my mother, she deserves it. What bothers me, though, is that the involved men like to praise themselves in front of mom and other relatives, saying how much thought they put into the gifts, how much work it was to secretly decorate the house at night, and how difficult it was to learn all of this when they were the only ones receiving the gifts for years. Mom knows full well that her sons and her husband have no idea what was in the gift all these years, and unfortunately, the relatives don't. Unfortunately, I didn't quite match mom's taste for Christmas. I bought a necklace. It wasn't difficult to fix the mistake. We went to the store a few days after Christmas, she picked out a different necklace, and it was exchanged without any problems. My brothers, however, made fun of me for it, saying, "What kind of daughter are you that you can't even pick out a necklace for your own mother?" And to this day, some of my brothers still haven't given me their financial share of the joint Christmas present because, we can't rely on you to make the gifts perfect. Last week was mom's birthday. None of my brothers ever contacted me about a gift, never asking for anything. As expected, they were counting on me to buy something big and then they'd give me money. Instead, I just gave her a small gift, just within my budget. I clearly handed it over with the words, "From your daughter," instead of the usual, "From your children and your husband." Yes, I wanted to accuse my brothers, I wanted to lure them into an ambush. I deliberately didn't tell anyone about my plan. They obviously think they can't rely on me anyway, so there they have the proof. They could have asked me, they could have coordinated with me, but they didn't. I'm not responsible for them thinking about gifts. I knew this would end in conflict, that I would be accused of being mean, of destroying the family, whatever. I was a bit surprised, though, that my mother wasn't really behind me either. She thinks I should have announced it. She thought it was a shame that she ended up with almost no presents on her birthday. So my question is, did I go too far? Should I have communicated this clearly beforehand? Aita, stories number 54. I came from poverty and now I'm finally living my best life, but my relatives say I'm selfish for not sharing my money. I, 22F, grew up poor like, lights getting shut off, borrowing money for food, and wearing the same shoes until they fell apart. My family struggled my whole life, and I always told myself I'd work hard so I wouldn't have to live like that forever. Now, after years of busting my ass working multiple jobs, sacrificing my social life, and grinding through school, I finally made it. I have a good job, my own apartment, and for the first time, I don't stress about money every single day. I'm genuinely proud of myself, but now my relatives are mad. They keep saying I'm selfish because I'm not sharing my money with them. Every time we talk, it turns into guilt trips like, we're family, we're supposed to help each other, or, you wouldn't have made it without us, which isn't even true. I did this all on my own. They make little comments about how I'm living easy while they're struggling, like it's my responsibility to fix it. It hurts because I thought once I made it, things would get better for all of us. But instead, it's like they resent me. I worked so hard to escape poverty, and now I feel like they're trying to drag me back in emotionally or financially. I love my family, but I also feel like I'm finally living the life I dreamed of, and I shouldn't have to feel guilty about that. I don't want to go broke trying to keep everyone else happy. What should I do? Should I set hard boundaries, try to explain, again, or just distance myself? I feel stuck between guilt and protecting what I worked so hard for. Stories number 55. Why do women have naturally beautiful bodies? Before you jump in the comments to tell me I'm wrong, try to read my entire post. I'm from Latin America. I don't know if this is the case in other countries, but it's something I've noticed since I was a teenager and in high school. Most of the girls in high school had very nice bodies without even going to the gym in their entire life. I remember a girl who ate unhealthy food all day and she had an amazing body. She never went to the gym in her life. I was her friend back then. She had such an amazing hourglass figure with big hips and very beautiful figure. I didn't understand that at the time. But not only in high school but currently I go out and most of the girls have very nice bodies and nice hips. I'm not talking about toned gym bodies but bodies with figure and curves, and even girls who are a little overweight also have beautiful bodies with nice curves. It's incredible. What is the reason for this? Is it hormonal? Why is it that women don't need to go to the gym as much to have nice bodies, as long as they're not excessively overweight? In the case of men it's different, and I say this as a man who went to the gym throughout his adolescence. We lack those naturally nice bodies, except for 1 in a million. I remember the first time I took a shower with my ex-GF at the time at my house. She took off her clothes. She had never been to the gym in her life and was a little overweight. She had a very nice body, a nice but with a beautiful figure. I didn't understand why she had such a beautiful body, meanwhile me going to gym had a below average body. Well, ugly body and not sexy as hers tbh. I know it's a stupid question, but I guess that's what this group is for, right? Is the cause hormonal? I know there are exceptions, that not all women have naturally beautiful bodies, but why is it that? For example, if you put a man and a woman of average weight who don't go to the gym next to each other, the girl's body is naturally attractive while the guy's isn't. I've always thought it's caused by estrogen and the hips, women's bone structures, but I'm not sure. I know diet is very important, but I think most girls only need a good diet and walk just a little to have good figures. Please don't hate for saying this, lol. Maybe I could be blind because I have gender dysphoria since many years ago, but not only me think about this, most women and men think the same way. And I'm not even talking about how women have average cute, feminine and thin faces without makeup, but this is another thread, lol. Please don't insult me for making this post. This is why this group was created. Stories number 56. Aita for not allowing my sister to have my wedding dress after I've already worn it. I, 28F, recently got married to my husband, 30M, and it was an amazing day. I had the wedding of my dreams and felt absolutely beautiful in my dress. It was something I had been planning for years, and I knew it was the one the moment I tried it on. My sister, Lily, 25F, has always been kind of, well, needy when it comes to attention. She's never quite liked the idea of me getting the spotlight, especially with major life events like my wedding. A few months before the wedding, she casually mentioned that she would love to wear my dress someday. I didn't think much of it at the time, so I told her that I was sure I'd be open to letting her wear it after my wedding, once I was done with it. The problem arose when I got my dress cleaned after the wedding. Lily came over to visit and immediately began asking me how soon she could take the dress for herself. She said she didn't want to wait too long and that she wanted to feel special in it too. I told her that I wasn't comfortable with that. It's my wedding dress, and I felt like it was something so personal to me. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying things like, "It's just a dress, why not let me wear it too? It's not like you're going to use it again." She even made a comment about how it's so unfair that she didn't get to have a dress like mine for her own wedding, she's not even engaged yet. I explained that while I loved her, I just didn't feel comfortable with her wearing my dress. She could find something similar or buy a new one that she would make her own. She started crying and telling me I was being selfish and that I was making her feel left out. Now, I feel guilty because I don't want to hurt her feelings, but I also believe it's important for me to set this boundary. I know my wedding dress is special to me, and I don't want it to lose its significance. So, Aita for not allowing my sister to wear my wedding dress after I've already worn it. Stories number 57. Brother's child-free destination wedding with an infant. My brother and future SIL recently announced they booked their venue. The venue is about a 3-hour flight from my husband and I. We also recently found out we're pregnant and this baby will be around 6 months old at the time of the wedding. My brother and FSIL have said this will be a child-free wedding. Seeking advice on how to handle this? I know above all it is their day and they didn't decide for us to get pregnant etc. but this baby is the only niece or nephew on either side of the family, plus they will still be an infant and it's a destination wedding for us. Should I discuss this with them or just leave it be? Be gentle, I'm 11 weeks pregnant LOL. ETA, just want to clarify that I do not intend to discuss with them to try and get them to change their minds or pressure them. It would more so be a conversation of talking through the logistics and setting expectations for what I may or may not be able to do. The bride has made comments suggesting I will be asked to be in the wedding party. Second ETA, they are already aware of the pregnancy. Stories number 58. Wibta if I refuse to pay a cat rescue for fixing my foster cats. Personally, I felt I was scammed by a rescue. Which is a statement I never thought I'd make, because usually I regard a rescue as a very honorable and respectable organization that only intends on helping. However, I ran into a particularly unfriendly rescue helper who responded to a post I had made requesting help with 2 kittens I had rescued from outside. In AZ, where temps get up to about 120 degrees. I had mentioned in the posts that I am a young mom who just bought my house and cannot afford to spay-neuter them and if there's anybody out there who could help me help them, to please reach out. She contacted me, asked me to explain why I felt that I needed the help, and then proceeded to ask me to bring the kittens for the procedure. I thanked her profusely, and she never mentioned once requiring that I pay her back. She also blew up my phone the day of the procedure telling me I must call her back now or else she will not see the kittens, even though I had sent her a text message the night before letting her know that I would be there. Anyways, now that the kittens have found a new home she sent me an invoice saying that I owe her $120 for the spay-neuter. She charged me more for the male kitten than the quote I got at a local clinic, and I would have definitely declined her offer for help had I known she would charge me and at this price. So, Wibta for ignoring her texts or reaching out to tell her I didn't agree to pay her back at this price. Stories number 59. Cashier joked about me falling, and I took him down. When I was 10 years old one of my hips necrosed and broke. It was bad enough at times as it took a few months for the doctors to understand what caused it, and when you walk on a broken bone, months is a long time. 10 years passed, and I'm supposed to be healthy. But my hip still hurts, and soon enough, it's just getting worse and worse. I'm just floating between tests and specialists, and no one can figure out what it is, as I'm no longer able to walk or even stand up without canes. It was a dark place, I was constantly in pain, swallowing opium like candies, and mourning my life as it seemed I would definitely lose the ability to walk. In addition, the looks I got when I used the priority seats in public transportation was rough. I guess I was too young to be disabled. One day I'm doing some groceries, a rare happening as most of the time I'm in too much pain. As I'm paying, the cashier smiles widely, and with the most paternalistic voice says, "Oh, you fell in your bathtub?" Now I was used to people bluntly asking me what my problem was. But the way he said it, like I was a poor little thing that had a minor injury and was making a big deal about it, I just looked him dead in the eyes and said, "No, my bone necrosed and we don't know if I'll be able to walk again one day." His face went pale and he didn't say a word until I left. A few years later, I'm doing immensely better as I finally found a surgeon who took my case, did the right tests and the right surgery, and with a little metal in my body I should be able to walk for at least 30 more years. But I often think about this cashier and hope he will think twice before asking those types of questions. Stories number 60. Overheard in the maternity ward. Years ago my friend was in the beginning stages of labor, with monitors attached to her belly and sharing a room with another person. The other patient had visitors with them on their side of the curtain. Of course the curtain doesn't mute out conversations, monitor noises, or even nurse instructions. After about 10 minutes of the other patient's visitor being there, a man says annoyingly loud, "What is the freaking noise? It's been going on since we got here." To which my friend blurted out loudly, "It's my baby's heartbeat." The man seemingly embarrassed tried to mumble some sort of polite statement as another lady was mumbling something to him. Stories number 61. Aita for not lying to my parents about my BF's behavior. I, 23F, made a few posts on here about my BF, 27M, a couple months ago. I got back together with him. His mom and family were just making me feel so guilty. So I did for the sake of our baby. I figured if we were happy then I could forget everything that happened. We moved into the new house. We were so good for the first few weeks. My parents go on a cruise for a month every February for my mom's birthday. They wasn't gonna go, but I felt like we was in such a good place that I said I'd be okay and told them to go. I started having brunch with my girls once a week again, but one week it was dinner to fit everyone's schedule. He found out one of my friends who he doesn't like was there and locked me out of the house. I slept in my car. When I confronted him at first he said it's because it was late, he thought I was staying at a friend's. I think it was around 10:30 that I got back, but one of my friends said that he watched her Instagram story and I asked him again and that's when he said he doesn't like me hanging out with someone who doesn't respect him and apologized saying he wouldn't do it again. I decided when our son turned 10 months that I was ready to go back to work part-time. We have an on-site daycare and I'd only be in the office 2 days a week and WFH 1 day. I told him about my plan and he didn't like it, but I stood my ground. He just made it so difficult to be in the office, so I started working from home 2 days a week, but then he would go out and leave me while I'm working with our crawling baby, so that became basically impossible. I said that I needed to work to pay my half of the mortgage, and so the compromise was that his mom would watch our son on the days I was working. Him and his mom started saying how I don't take care of the house and our son well enough because I'm working and going out. His mom said how her kids and husband were her only priorities and that's how I needed to be if I wanted to be a good mom. I met his grandma for the first time and she tripped on a toy car that I forgot to pick up. She was fine, she didn't fall or hurt herself, but it did scare us. That night he got physical for the first time, which I understood because his grandmother's 89 and it could have been really serious. We would be good and then I'd forget to do something or just ruin the mood by accident, and I'll try not to, but it's like I keep fucking up. My parents have been wanting to FT, but I would always air their calls and just send videos of the baby instead. But my mom called me today while I was working and I answered forgetting my cheek was a bit bruised and I ended just telling her everything and they're flying back tomorrow. My BF's mom heard me OTP and cussed me out. She basically said that my relationship should be private and that it's no one's business what me and my BF do. I feel like I've fucked up. Stories number 62. Driver tried to follow me home. I took an Uber home from work late last night. Not even 5 minutes into the ride, my driver asks me, "Do you have a boyfriend waiting at home for you?" Which is a pretty weird question for a stranger, and definitely a red flag. When we were almost to the destination he says something along the lines of, "You're almost home safe and sound to see another day," which felt strange because of the question he had asked me earlier. We get to the gas station that I use as my home address for safety reasons, and he starts asking me where I really live, pointing to houses in the area and asking if I lived in them. I told him no, pointed in the opposite direction of my house and told him I lived that way. He starts driving me in the direction I pointed, even though I have the address set to the gas station. I tell him to stop because I wanted to grab snacks on my way home. He says okay, and that he's going to go in with me. He goes in the gas station, goes to the bathroom, then goes to fill his car with gas. At this point I snuck out the door when he wasn't looking and hid behind the gas station to wait for him to leave, because there's no way to walk towards my house without passing him. He finishes his gas and just sits there for a bit. Eventually he drives off in the direction I told him my house was, I'm assuming to try and look for me. Am I overthinking, or was my Uber driver planning to do something?